This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Massive show heading into the weekend. Coming off a tough shutout loss for the Jets at home to the Boston Bruins last night. We have a lot to get to coming out of last night's game, as well as looking ahead to a monster matinee tomorrow with the Nashville Predators hosting the Winnipeg Jets. And then Sunday night in St. Louis to take on the Blues. The Jets 3 points up on the Calgary Flames right now and holding down the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference. We'll get the latest on the Jets, hear from Rick Bowness from this morning, as well as after last night's game, and talk about it all with Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun, Ken Wiebe of Sportsnet as well, and a little later on, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton will come by with a full update on everything happening around NFL free agency. And it's Friday, St. Patrick's Day. We will, I don't know whether we'll crack a beer, but we will definitely drop the marbles with our Friday marbles race coming up a little bit later on. Make sure you're with us live on YouTube around 2:45 for your chance to enter. This is before we bring in Michael Remis. A big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, including Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Culligan Water, Canadian Club, Vita Health Fresh Market, Wallace & Wallace, Consolidated Supply, F Apparel, Manitoba Battery, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and lots to get to for Why Not Question of the Day for Not Autocorp over the Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, what is up?
Ready for the weekend. Woo! St. Patrick's Day, right? Big night coming of green beer equals green teeth, green tongue, all for it. Let's go.
Could be green face tomorrow. Govern yourselves accordingly on St. Patrick's Day because, of course, a big hockey game tomorrow afternoon. 1 o'clock start, the Jets and the Nashville Predators. And, we'll talk more about Nashville a little later on, but as far as the scoreboard watching went last night, Jets dropping a 3-0 decision, which we'll get to in a second with the Boston Bruins at home. Meanwhile, the Chicago Blackhawks did the Winnipeg Jets a big favor, beating the Nashville Predators. And the Preds remain 4 points back. But the Calgary Flames had an explosion of offense in the third period. They waxed the Vegas Golden Knights 7-2. Big win for Calgary. Calgary, with the same number of games remaining, 13 on the season, moves to within 3 points of the Winnipeg Jets. But I guess to start off, Remo, we'll talk about last night's game. And I don't know about you. I mean, I thought the team played pretty well. But, man, you can't spot a team like the Boston Bruins a goal in the first minute of the hockey game as the Jets did last night. And listen, I thought there were a lot of positives in the game overall, but right now it is about results. I thought, the Bruins were, they certainly didn't look like the best team in the National Hockey League, but they can sure as hell play with a lead, and they did exactly that in the third period, squeezing the Jets. And, it was one of those games that I think points were there to be had. But when you start the way the Winnipeg Jets did, and not necessarily a terrible start for the team, I thought they played quite well in the first period. But as I say, when you spot a team like that, a goal right off the bat, it compounds the challenge of playing against a top NHL team. And unfortunately, the Jets were left frustrated after 60 minutes with nothing to show for an effort.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trend here, a couple trends. That was their 6th loss in their last 7 at home, and they had been so good at home earlier in the year. That's the third time this season they've given up a goal in the first minute. However, Dan Robertson mentioned this on the broadcast, and I had to look it up to confirm. Not that I don't trust Dan, but I was just double checking. In the last 8 games, they've given up the first goal in the first 5 minutes 5 times. And yesterday it was very quickly against Boston. Carolina was just under 4:37 in. Against Tampa Bay, one of those games, Tampa Bay, sorry, they actually won 2 of these games, though. Tampa Bay, a minute 19 in. Edmonton, they had the 2 on the power plays. And, I can't really fault them, but you don't want to be taking penalties 2 games in a row against Edmonton. So it's just a weird trend where they keep giving up the first goal, and they were able to win 2 of those, 2 of those 5 times they did. But, you don't want to put yourself in such a disadvantage early on by taking a penalty in the first 5 minutes of a game or giving up a goal. You're just chasing the game the whole time, and a team like Boston was ready for it. And, they tried. They had chances. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, a lot talking about them coming into the game. I thought they both stepped up, each having 6 shots on net, leading the team, but you couldn't score. And we've just been saying this over and over again. Oh, they got goalied by Swayman. They got goalied by Marc-Andre Fleury. Goalie by James Reimer. And again, the power, and we're talking about trends. The power play outage continues. I'm sure we'll talk about that throughout the show. So they played well. Process was good. Didn't get the result, but it just seemed like a lot of the same issues that we've seen in the last bit just keep occurring, and they haven't been able to fix them.
Yeah, I don't know what your expectations were going into last night's game.
Win.
I certainly want. Well, listen,
Sorry.
Excuse me. I really did think that there was an opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets to match the Bruins, who had been, listen, let's face it, this team is just waiting for the playoffs to start right now. They came in at 50-11 on the season, all but wrapped up first place in the National Hockey League and first place in the Eastern Conference right now, and had lost 3 of 4, I believe the first time all season long, or maybe only the second time. And it was also, I think the big question going in was how the Jets would respond to what happened in Carolina, and in particular, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, how they would respond to being sat down for the majority of the second period on Tuesday night. I thought Connor and Scheifele were both engaged. They both worked hard. They both have 6 shots on net. They were definitely trying to shoot the puck a heck of a lot more. But as I said, the Bruins were in a really advantageous position right from the first minute of that hockey game. I thought Swayman made a couple big saves. And honestly, the game probably is a lot different if the Jets managed to score on one of those open nets they had in the first period. And Rick Bowness has talked about that in the past, Remo, that there have been opportunities for the Winnipeg Jets to score that just haven't gone in. And, when you are struggling, if you're not making the most of wide open nets, it's even harder to do it when the goalie's ready to go. So I'm not sure that it's a full-blown panic attack for most Jet fans after yesterday. I think everyone knew this team was going to be up against it, and they did show up. They did play hard. But the bottom line is they got through this 5-game stretch with 5 points, which I'd said on this program was the minimum they could afford to get. They've got it, and now you go in for back-to-back games on the weekend, and we can only hope that the back-to-backs this weekend go as well as the ones in the standings last weekend, because those are the only 2 wins the Winnipeg Jets have had in a while.
Yeah, we should have seen this coming. Shout out to Al Broderick in chat, who says, we forgot the first game back from a long road trip narrative. How could we forget saying that one yesterday? But yeah, the Jets outshot the Bruins. I think the power play, I think you got to be concerned, and you're looking at practice day. It seems like they just keep trotting out the same power play 1. You look at the ice time distribution, power play 1 getting like 6 minutes, and you have Wheeler passing to Kyle Connor on his strong side, not his one-timer side, and I think it's tough to score and tough to get the puck off quickly when you're taking the puck. I know they wanted to switch things up. I don't know if that is the right switch. One note, the Jets put out post-game notes, Sess. I was reading them. So the power play went 0 for 5. The last time they had 5 or more power play goals and were shut out. Do you remember the game?
5 or more power play opportunities.
Sorry, power play
and was shut out?
opportunities and was shut out. Yeah, do you remember the game? I'll tell you.
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay, you won't remember. November 29 last year versus Arizona. I believe that was Vimelka's coming out party.
Vimelka.
It was his coming out party. And I do remember that was a game where he had a lot of, it was a shutout where they really didn't have too many like high danger chances. There were some last night. Connor and Scheifele in tight. Schmidt off the post. Again, 5 power plays. You got to figure out a way. And it just seems in all these close games lately, it's the power play letting them down. And I mean, they got to switch up. One, sign that was encouraging. Josh Morrissey, who had been injured and made his return. Team high, 31 minutes and 11 seconds. Absolutely ridiculous. He was out today for a maintenance day. I'm assuming he's fine if they're riding him that hard. So that would be a positive that I would take from the game. And I mean, they're gonna have to give her tomorrow afternoon in Nashville. I'm curious, the afternoon game after St. Patrick's Day in Nashville. What an atmosphere that will be. But Nashville helping out the Jets yesterday, losing to Chicago. So when I saw Boston lost to Chicago, I was like, oh man, well they're not gonna lose 2 in a row. I mean, you can't. I mean, they're going to learn from that and show up, and they need to score right away. That first goal, I'll say, is a tough D position. You get 4 guys on one side of the net, leaving Frederick like wide open. And I was looking Hellbuck's save percentage since January 1. It's been like just over 900. Like I can't really fault him. I know I've said I don't think he's played terrible. You can't really fault him on a lot of these when this guy's all alone in front in the slot. What's he supposed to do there? And that was a tough breakdown early.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you want to help your goalie, don't leave a guy wide open in front of the net on a quick pass from behind the net in the first minute of the game. And listen, I thought Hellebuck bounced back. I thought he made some saves. The one thing I'll say, and this is sort of why I maintain that game was in some ways it felt like it was winnable, Reem, was that, the first line of Boston, which has been so dominant all season long, didn't really seem like they were that impactful. Certainly the Lowry line, I thought, did a good job at times, keeping the puck in the Boston zone and cycling and taking it to the net. But I also think that it was somewhat result of where the game was at with the Boston Bruins playing with the lead. And, you saw the way a team like that knows how to win night after night after night is able to play with the lead. And, as much as the Jets tried, they didn't have a lot on Jeremy Swayman until maybe the last sort of 5-6 minutes of that third period. And it's credit to the Boston Bruins for what they've done all season long. I don't think it's necessarily a surprise. But as I said, it wasn't like the team stunk it out. It wasn't like they didn't show up. But if you want to beat a team like Boston, you really need to have a few things go your way and play a great game. And obviously it wasn't quite up to that level. All that being said, and we'll hear a little bit more from Bones on last night's game and talk about this, we do get into an incredibly important week, to say the least, for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, this past 5 games was the meat grinder. Minnesota, Florida, Tampa, Carolina, Boston. Well, now it's the Nashville Predators chasing the Winnipeg Jets Saturday afternoon. St. Louis come back home for 1 game against the Arizona Coyotes, and then the Anaheim Ducks in California. All 4 teams on the schedule over this course of the next week outside of the playoff line. And the Jets, who were very good in the first half of the season, making the most of opportunities against teams below them in the standings, absolutely have to get on a bit of a streak. And, after that game against the Ducks, they do play a Saturday afternoon game against the Los Angeles Kings next week. Couple days off, the Sharks, couple days off, home game against the Detroit Red Wings. So essentially, over the course of the next 2 weeks, the only team in the playoffs that the Winnipeg Jets are playing is the Los Angeles Kings. And as I said, I think they did what the absolute minimum to stay where they needed to be over the course of these last 5 games. But if this team is going to make the playoffs, they need to make the most of these opportunities and start a bit of a winning streak tomorrow afternoon against the Preds.
Yeah, we've been tracking the Money Puck playoff odds all season, and at one point when they were in first place, it was like over 90%. And with that loss yesterday and Calgary's win, the gap is closing, and it's at 57.6%. 57. I think you were on with Frank Saravalli today. Great appearance on Daily Faceoff Live. He was saying 60. Even Money Puck has even less. And I think that can change with a snap of the fingers if you win against Nashville. But now you're chasing Calgary. You do have a game against Calgary. So these 4-point games, just massive. And as you said, I know Nashville's got a tough schedule. I still don't think they're going to do it. Calgary seems to have some talent, but they just haven't meshed this season. Nazem Kadri starting on the fourth line yesterday, and Huberdeau just hasn't followed up last year's huge season. But the Jets here, as you said, Nashville, St. Louis, Arizona, Anaheim, 4 in a row against teams not in the playoffs. This is, again, big. As you said, we thought the last stretch was big against teams that are in. This is where they got to make all these points back, and we'll have to see if they can do it, because the second half Jets team does not look like the first half Jets team. I don't know what it is. Is it they're not playing? They're not playing aggressive style, not getting the same performance from Connor Hellebuck. The bottom line is they're not really scoring lately too, and they've given up too many at times. And they've been playing 500 hockey, which is the reason why they're in the playoff spot, because they were so good at the beginning. So
yeah,
it'll be.
I'll say this. I mean, I certainly think the team's played better over the last 2 weeks. I mean, basically dating back to San Jose. From last Monday up until now. Could they have, maybe deserved another point? Certainly, I mean, they had 1 point out of 4 between San Jose and Minnesota, and they probably should have had all 4. You got those 2 wins on the weekend in Florida. And I think going into the games this week, they felt like they were in a pretty good position and had done what they needed to do. But they weren't able to get anything else against Carolina or Boston. And I think you can probably handle that if you were kind of looking and predicting wins and losses. Those are 2 of the toughest games on the schedule the entire year. But it's coming down to this next stretch right now. And as far as the Calgary Flames go, Flames even games with the Winnipeg Jets, 13 remaining. This is what their schedule looks like. They've got a home game tomorrow night against the Dallas Stars. All of a sudden, Jet fans will be big Dallas Stars fans. Monday night, they're in LA. Then they get the Anaheim Ducks on Tuesday. Then a 3-game homestand against Vegas, San Jose, Los Angeles. 1 game out in Vancouver. Back home for Anaheim and the Chicago Blackhawks. Ooh. And then a game that could end up basically being a playoff game at Winnipeg, Wednesday, April 5th, the Jets' second last home game of the year, I believe. And then at Vancouver, home to Nashville, home to San Jose. So Calgary's got a number of these below the playoff line teams on their schedule as well. There's no room for error right now with the Winnipeg Jets because, of course, if it does go the other way and they stay as a 500 team, the Calgary Flames are going to catch them right now. So, it's not good enough to go 2-2 over this next little bit. They need to start stacking up points, and they need to start it now, taking on the Nashville Predators tomorrow. Let's get a little bit from yesterday, and we'll talk more about what we heard today from the Winnipeg Jets, Remo. And Sean Reynolds went into the dressing room, and I think the sentiment from the players were that they weren't disappointed with the overall performance of the club. Just disappointed they weren't able to beat Jeremy Swayman, and obviously disappointed with the results. Rennie asked Bones if he agreed with the players' sentiment that they played a pretty good game against a hell of a hockey team.
Rick, the sense from your players is that they played well enough in that game that it could have gone the other way. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, it could have. I mean, a couple of goal posts, 2-on-1s. We missed a couple of tap-ins around the net. Yeah, we could have. You got to put those pucks in the net. The opportunities were there. Their goalie was really good, and we didn't capitalize on the chances we gave them, that they gave us. And the worst thing you can do is fall behind 1-0 50 seconds into the game. So against a team that's going to sit back, and they've got a big, mobile, physical defense, and it's hard to get to the net on those guys.
Yeah, Bones nailing it. I mean, giving up that early goal in the first period, the first minute of the first period was the worst possible way to get off against a team like the Boston Bruins. Bones expanded a little bit more on the fact that they've continued to play well, but are not getting the results, which is really what counts at this time of the year.
Just capitalize on those chances. It's just the last 3 games here. We've had enough chances to score, and we haven't. It's as simple as that. If we're not generating those chances and generating those shots, then yeah, I'd be very, very concerned. But we held a very good team to very limited scoring chances, limited shots. But again, when you get those opportunities to score, you just gotta go in.
Rick.
All right, there's some of Rick Bowness from post game yesterday. Obviously, there won't be too much dwelling on the Boston game because the legit biggest game of the year now is tomorrow against the Nashville Predators. And Bones talked quickly about looking ahead to the afternoon game at Bridgestone.
Both teams will be very desperate. That's the mentality is going to be. There better be a lot of urgency on every shift and every detail that we talk about. The urgency and the desperation, it has to be there.
All right, so there's Rick Bowness last night post game. Now, as we talked about, in a tight game like that, with limited scoring opportunities, 5 power plays for the Winnipeg Jets with nothing to show for it was a big factor in the game. Bones talked a little bit about the power outage on the power play.
They had some good looks. They did. We had 10 shots on net and a couple that they blocked. You get 5 opportunities, 4.5, but you need the power play to put one in. But give the goalie some credit. He made a couple of saves there they didn't see. I know Mark's shot was going in. He just stuck his arm up and he hit him. It's one of those nights for him. We had a couple of tips that could have gone in. So it was good. Does it have to be better? Yes.
All right, Bones on the Winnipeg Jet power play. And one other clip, and this is going to take us to some of the audio from today. Ken Wiebe asked Rick Bowness about the current status of Pierre-Luc Dubois.
What are the chances Pierre-Luc would be ready for the weekend game?
I can only hope at this point.
A little ominous and strange, Reem. This whole situation with Dubois was the lower body injury, came back, then an upper body injury. They thought he might join the team on the road trip. That didn't happen. They were expecting him to play last night. That didn't happen. And it really does seem like it's a big question mark of a guy that they could so use in the middle, especially in games like they just played this week against top teams like Carolina and Boston.
Yeah. He's a big guy, top 6 forward, center, plays on the power play. I mean, can score. He's really slow, kind of slowed down here in the second half. A lot of it, he hasn't played in the last stretch of games, but he got off to such a hot start this season. And he had the lower body injury and then he got re-injured, but it's not the same injury. They haven't really, come out and said what it was, which has led to a lot of speculation here and online. Maybe Ken and Scott can shed some more light on it, but asked about when Rick Bowness says we can only hope, I don't know what to make of that comment. Is he going to be ready or not? And what's the timeline here? Which is, when you hear that combined with his comments today.
Well, let's play that right now because this was, I guess it's number 8 on the list.
Sure.
Kelly Moore of 680 CJOB asked Bones, essentially about what the situation with Dubois was as the team heads out on the road. This is from this morning.
If this was a playoff game, so-and-so would play. So from that perspective, if Pierre-Luc Dubois is even close, will that be more of a consideration than it might have been for game 65 or 66?
Yes, but again, we're not going to put him in a position where he's not 100%. As long as he's close and feels that he can help the team, then he'll play. If he decides that he couldn't get through a game, that's the danger you run of somebody who's playing with a slight injury, that they don't get through the game. So we listen. We're going to leave it completely up to him. If he feels he's 100% or close enough that he knows he can not only play the game but finish the game and make a contribution, then we'll certainly let him play. But that call is going to be made by him, not by us.
All right, so there's Bones, and there was plenty of speculation, Remo. And listen, they don't disclose injuries, so people will, kind of try and take what information they have and, apply it to the situation. I know a lot of people thought that maybe this was concussion related or concussion protocol, but I mean, you don't leave that up to the player right now. So I think it's pretty clear, and we'll talk about this with the guys, that this isn't a head injury. This is something else that is bothering Pierre-Luc Dubois, and unfortunately keeping him out of the lineup last night for a game that they really could have used him.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, and I'm just going to sit here and speculate about injuries. We don't know what it is, but he said that they'll leave it up to the player. Does that mean that the team's doctors have cleared him to play, but he's not comfortable playing because he thinks he's going to re-aggravate it? That's what he said. They want to make sure he can finish the game, but they're leaving it up to him. Like normally, you'd see you have like a broken bone or something. The doctor said, okay, you're healed, you're ready to play. It's a situation where they're saying, okay, you're good to go. And he's like, I don't feel good to go, even though you're telling me I'm good to go. And again, this is pure speculation based on what the coach is saying. So, I don't know what to make. You're saying, there are other people saying, no, that doesn't mean it's concussion, but I don't know how you can say what it is because one, we have no idea, but it's just, I don't think you've ever really heard it saying it's going to be totally up to the player. That is the part where you're like, what?
Well, there are injuries at times that come in where, I mean, the team is like, hey, this is not going to get any worse. If you can go, you can play. I mean, they're not keeping him out because it'll hurt his future or, potentially knock him out for the rest of the year. This is the way I see it. And maybe it's just an injury that is somewhat painful, that they believe that, if he can go, if he can get through it, it's sort of up to him. It is somewhat mysterious, though. And, when you consider the importance of all of these games, to be missing a guy that is so important in your top six, in the power play, and in so many other aspects, not what the Winnipeg Jets need to have right now. We'll talk about this with Billeck coming up in a couple minutes. But here's a little bit more from Bones this afternoon or this morning before the team hit the bird to Music City. We'll go with 7, Remo. Bones, was asked. We talked about how important this game is, especially with Nashville right behind the Winnipeg Jets, along with Calgary in the race for that final playoff spot. Bones talked about, if tomorrow's game is basically a playoff game in March.
Yes, and every game after will be the same. We clearly know where we are in the standings. A couple of teams chasing the Nashville, obviously one of them. So every game from here on in is going to be a playoff game until we see an X beside our name that we made the playoffs. And it would be a huge mistake on our part not to take that approach. But we're not going to let that happen. We're taking every game as if it's a playoff game right now.
All right, Rick Bowness of the Winnipeg Jets just discussing the level of urgency that he expects to see from his team beginning tomorrow when the puck drops at Bridgestone at 1:00 p.m. Bones also talked about the Predators, who many people, myself included, thought that it was next year territory after they traded the likes of Nito Niederreiter at the deadline to the Jets of all teams. They haven't gone anywhere, although the Blackhawks did do Winnipeg and Calgary a favor, beating the Predators last night. Here's what Bones had to say on tomorrow's hosts.
Well, they've got a fantastic goalie. And then you put a bunch of kids in there fighting for jobs for next year, and they're playing loose. That's right. But all of a sudden you're back in the playoff race, and it's more us that have faltered than I blame us for that. But they're right there, and they work hard. But when you've got a goalie like Saros, you've got a chance to win every game. And then when he wins a couple of games and steals a couple of games for you, all of a sudden your confidence goes up a little bit.
All right, and one more from Bones. Let's do 10 here. This goes back to the desperation that I think this situation calls for, and the word that we've heard from Rick Bowness a number of times, urgency. He expects to see that from his team tomorrow.
You hope it gets their attention, but the final say is on how we play. And I thought we worked very hard last night. We competed, and we had some really good looks. I think that, again, people are tired of hearing that, another dominant game at home that we didn't score. So the end result is we need to score goals. But you don't score goals unless you take care of the process and you compete. And we did both of those things last night. And according to their coach, Monty, that their goalie had the game of his year. And I think we've heard that a couple of times over the last 10 days.
Yeah, another goalie stepping up against the Jets. Remo just kind of went through all of the goalies that have had that exact performance against this club as of late, and certainly not a lot of puck luck going in right now for Winnipeg. Scott Billeck on deck right now. Ken Wiebe a little bit later on. Just before we do that, got to give a big shout out to our friends over at Manitoba Battery. Gang, if you're in the need of a battery for your car, your truck, or even that summer toy you're working on this winter, Manitoba Battery has the most convenient and well-priced option in the city. So convenient that you can give them a call or head online to manitobabattery.com, put in your order time or even the start of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and that sucker will be on your doorstep ready to go in 2 to 4 hours for less money than you'd spend anywhere else in Winnipeg on the same battery. No more fighting for a parking spot at Costco, no waiting in line at Canadian Tire, and no more spending money on battery at the big box stores. Let Manitoba Battery bring the battery to you and provide you with the best price in town for batteries of all makes and models. 783-8787. Order online at manitobabattery.com or pop down and see Donnie and his great staff in person at 1026 Logan Avenue. Our friends at Consolidated Supply are ready for this damn snow to leave and allow us to get back out on the golf course. Obviously, they are the leader in irrigation and artificial turf and have been working with the golf industry for years. They can also do that same great work for you on your property. Irrigation services, maybe you're thinking about that dream putting green in the backyard, and while you're doing that, how about a spa or hot tub or maybe a beautiful outdoor kitchen? They have it all. And, of course, they are the exclusive club car dealer in town if you have a need for a golf cart of any type. Pop by and see the gang at 1395 Niagara Road East. Consolidated Supply is open to the public. You can also check out everything they've got going online, including small engine parts and repair at cte.ca. We have got still a little bit of time for our March Wallace & Wallace Unsung Community Hero. Send us an email to unsunghero@winnipegsportstalk.com and let us know about that person in your life or in your community that's spending hours, whether it be charity work, whether it be extensive volunteering, or just being that go-to neighbor that's always there to help out those in need. Tell us about them at unsunghero@winnipegsportstalk.com. We will pick a winner, and that winner is going to get a autographed jersey from Jets All-Star defenseman Josh Morrissey. Wallace & Wallace will make a $500 donation to the Dream Factory in the name of the Winnipeg Sports Talk listener that nominated the Unsung Hero, and Josh and Margot Morrissey will match that as well for a $1,000 donation to the Dream Factory, of course, which Josh is an ambassador for. And just before we bring in Scotty, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Hey, if you're looking for some non-alcoholic craft beer, mocktails, or great snacks, head on down to Vita Health Fresh Market, where you can also get great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, and Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products, too. And with spring allegedly just around the corner, get ready for it, guys, with Ultimate Male Energy. Formulated specifically for men over 35, Ultimate Male Energy is designed to help improve testosterone production, reduce excess body fat, build muscle tissue, maintain prostate health, and more. It's on sale today at Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. All right, let's get back to the Jets and welcome in Scott Billeck from the Winnipeg Sun. Billeck, what's going on?
It's going. Looking forward to tomorrow's game. Should be a good one, right? I mean, it's a big game for both teams, potentially the biggest game of the year. So, well, it is the biggest game of the year right now. And then
we're going to be saying a lot of that over the next
I think
month.
so, right? I mean, that's that's the thing, right? I mean, the Jets have put themselves in this sort of position where every game is big. Every game is, with Nashville, the way that they've played, Calgary winning again, beating Vegas last night 7-2. Yeah, I mean, there's no room for error because we've seen what error has cost the Jets here. I mean, they had a 6-point lead. It's down to 3 now. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I mean, I was listening to Rick Bowness this morning, and you're kind of like, okay, we've heard a lot of this same thing before. We keep hearing it. Like, my issue is we were hearing some of the same stuff at game 40, right, at the halfway mark of the season, 41, whatever. There's 13 games left now. It's time to figure it out because, the Jets, I'm not sure I believe in the Nashville Predators at the moment. I was just talking to Robbie Stanley from 102.5 The Game there this morning for a video that we were doing for the Winnipeg Sun, and I mean they have a brutal schedule, and they're not really built. I mean, this is a team that sold off 4 guys at the trade deadline, and yet here they are still because the Jets are allowing them to still be there, and so the team needs to figure it out. I mean, it's time to win. It's time to get the points. It's time not to get shut out by backup goaltenders. It's no, this isn't any disrespect to Jeremy Swayman, but the Jets need to find a way to score a goal last night because it's not good enough to, at this point in the year anymore, to outplay teams and not win games, right? Like, this is a time where the process matters, yes, but at the same time you got to win games, and it doesn't matter. They want the process to look good, right? Like, they want it to look good. You want to be able to go in the playoffs playing a playoff brand of hockey. But at the same time, this team also needs points just to make it to the playoffs. And so there's going to have to be a bit of a balancing act of, getting urgent, getting, maybe taking some risks and all that stuff until maybe it's a little bit more set in stone that you're going to keep that playoff spot. And right now, that's not the case. I mean, they have 2 teams kind of nipping at their heels, and they need to figure it out.
Well, and Calgary had that massive win last night.
Yeah.
I mean, in Vegas, on the road. We were just going through Calgary's schedule, and they've got a lot of teams
Easy
that are
games.
in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. But so do the Jets over the course of this next week. And
Yep.
Scott, I'm interested in your perspective on this. After the disappointment against San Jose, leaving that 1 point on the table, we were talking on this program about the upcoming 5 games. The home game against Minnesota, the 2 games in Florida, Carolina, and Boston, probably the toughest 5-game stretch of the entire schedule. And I'd said on the program that this team has to they got to figure out how to at least get 5 points out of those 5 games. Well, they did that. They got those 2. The 2 wins were absolutely massive. They had that 1 point, coming out of the San Jose game. And listen, I think it wasn't they certainly played better, I think, in both the Carolina and Boston game to compare it to a month ago or so. All that being said, they did the absolute minimum to stay in that playoff spot right now. But this next week, to me, playing against Nashville, St. Louis, the Anaheim Ducks, these are the games and of course a home game against Arizona as well. To me, I think that they not only do they need to win a game, they need to get on a bit of a run. And I mean, it is a must-win game tomorrow. But I think because they're not going up against Carolina and Boston, they have to feel that if they continue to play like this, they will get those results. But honestly, there's no other option, because if that doesn't happen, I got a pretty good feeling that the Calgary Flames are going to have their foot on the gas right to the final game. Really, the game here in Winnipeg that could be monumental when it comes to which one of these teams go out. They can probably take care of Nashville tomorrow in a 4-point game if they win it, but the Calgary Flames aren't going anywhere. And I think we've seen, even in their losses lately, they are ramping it up right now. And man, to me, this is just an absolutely crucial stretch for the Winnipeg Jets with very winnable games that they have to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, first, you can't get Karel Vermelka next week, right, against Arizona. You got to find a way to beat that team. But you're right. I mean, you need to win both these games this weekend. It doesn't, you can't even wait to Arizona. Like, there's no excuse for not winning tomorrow's game against a Nashville Predators team that doesn't have Philip Forsberg. It doesn't have Ryan McDonough. Like, I mean, this team as good as they've been lately, I think they won 4 of their last 5, 6 of their last 10 in Nashville. They're as good as they've been doing that. They're a team that's not expected to do anything. And that's where you hear about trap games and all that kind of stuff. Jets can't get trapped. I mean, that's just the way it is. You can't get trapped anymore. This isn't the time to play to the level of the team that you're playing. This is a time to play the exact same way you played against Carolina or Boston. Clean up some of the puck management issues that ultimately killed you in both of those games and go out and dominate, right? Like they need a good feeling in this room, because you think about it last night, you could see how frustrated Kyle Connor was. Some of the other guys that are just not getting it done on the scoreboard, the power play guys who just can't figure out a way to score, going over 5. This team has a lot of problems that need quick remedies. They're getting the shots, they're getting the chances, all that kind of stuff, but it's not going for them. And so, you have to roll into Nashville tomorrow and you have to beat them. And then it's got to start from there. So you beat them, then you go into St. Louis, you got to beat St. Louis. You have a day and a half between games at that point. There's no excuse for the back-to-backs anymore, all that kind of stuff. Probably going to see Connor Hellebuyck twice this weekend. Potentially not. We'll see.
Never mind. I would be stunned if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't play both games.
Right.
I'm starting to wonder when we'll see Dave again.
Well, I think you might see him Tuesday, because I think you can maybe win that game against Arizona here and then play Hellebuyck in the games on that road trip again. Because, again, the Jets, I think they have like 6 of their next 7 games on the road, something like that. Or maybe 5 of the next 6. Something like that. Either way, they got a lot of road games coming up here.
Yeah, 5 of the next 6.
5 of the next 6. Yeah, you got to win all those games. Every game right now is a must-win. And you're right, Calgary. I was talking to Wes Gilbertson this morning, Calgary Sun, Calgary Herald beat reporter for the Flames for Post Media. And he's talking about, it's interesting because we're doing this video and we're talking about Flames and the Jets, and everything's saying a lot of the same things, right? We don't know which kind of team's going to show up every night. They can't score in the third period. They don't know how to come back from games. But they're having, issues in goal at times and all that stuff. There's a lot of things going on with the Calgary Flames. But, last night they made a bit of a statement in Vegas, scoring 7 goals, putting up a touchdown and converting on the extra. The Jets need to make a statement, right? I mean, arguably, you could say they made a statement last weekend, but they've now followed it up with 2 losses. And so, again, as good as they played at maybe Carolina and Boston, it's not good enough, right?
Most people can live with losses to the best teams in the league. But with the schedule that's on the table right now, these teams that are under the playoff line with the situation that the team is in, there is no excuses. The opportunity is there for them, and we'll talk a week from today, or say in 10 days from now, and the landscape of this playoff race. Obviously, the other teams need to take care of their business if they want to stay in this. But the Winnipeg Jets need to be the team that they are chasing, not waiting to be caught and then coming back. You mentioned the challenges scoring goals right now. Kyle Connor in one of the most extended funks he's been in for a long time. Mark Scheifele, of course, those 2 guys were benched. They spoke yesterday. There was a lot of talk about that line right out of the get-go. What did you think about their response last night, how they played, and the level of frustration right now that particularly Kyle Connor is having for a guy that's used to seeing that red light go on a lot more often than it has as of late, knowing how much this team depends on him to score?
Well, I thought the response was horrible 1 minute into the game where they got scored on immediately, right? I mean, that's, but then they were going, right? I thought they, I made a comment even on Twitter yesterday that Nikolai Ehlers didn't have a lot of power play time yesterday, but that power play was actually kind of buzzing, right? I thought that power play was buzzing last night. I mean, Kyle Connor gets robbed by Swayman there, and then Mark Scheifele gets robbed by Charlie McAvoy. And it's just okay, but those are goals. In most scenarios, those are goals. Problem is, they needed to be goals and they weren't goals, right? If one of those 2 scores on that sequence, the game is completely different in my mind, because the Jets get the momentum. they break the duck. Maybe if Kyle Connor scores, I mean, that gets the monkey off his back. Like, there's a lot of those things, right, that happen. And, it's I liked the play. I liked the response to that line last night. But again, I thought that, the first goal that they allowed, ultimately won Boston the game. And so, like, that's a problem. But what I didn't like was the response to them being benched. Like I had more of an issue with the fact that Mark Scheifele, and you can say Kyle Connor, whatever. Kyle Connor's a leader on this team. He's a veteran. He doesn't wear a letter. And like, I have a bit of sympathy for Kyle Connor, because here's a guy who's still putting up a great season in terms of points. Yeah, maybe his defense hasn't been great, but he's not scoring goals. And here's a guy that's trying to, probably for the first time in his career, like, really kind of navigate a funk when it comes to goal scoring. I can understand, and I don't know if Kyle Connor, apparently he was asked for, he said his name wasn't on the board, whatever. I have a problem with Mark Scheifele not coming out and speaking after that, taking the onus. It shouldn't have been on Nino Niederreiter to bring the truth serum after that. It shouldn't be on the new guy to figure it out. Like that's where my bigger problem with this team is, or at least with a couple of guys, is that accountability. And like, I know, there's going to be people in the chat and online that they don't care, right? Whatever, it's not a big deal. I'm not saying that they had to speak because it's the media asking for them or whatever, but you want to see leadership at this time of year. You want to see accountability. You want to see your leaders. Mark Scheifele, there's no captain on this team. So, if there's 3 A's, they're all captains at this point because they don't have a guy wearing the C. Mark Scheifele needs to come out. I don't care if he's pissed off. That's come out and show that you're pissed off. Be upset about it, right?
You should be pissed off. You just got benched.
Exactly. Show that. Who cares about a headline, Mark? Like, are you really worried about some clickbait? Be more worried about the fact that you got benched for 12 minutes, didn't get a shot attempt on goal during the time that you played up to that point, and be upset about that. Don't be upset about whatever we're gonna write or what might be said or what headline there is. Like that's the part that I think is still sinking this team. Is that like it's so selfish for Mark Scheifele to not come out and take the brunt of that. It should not have been Nino Niederreiter. And maybe Nino Niederreiter is the most equipped guy to do that, because I think he was. I think what Nino Niederreiter said was completely brilliant. He comes out.
Listen, we said that yesterday. It was a hell of a lot better than we would have gotten from any of the other parties involved.
Of course, yes.
But I agree with you.
But do you need to bring the guy out that is the center of that line, that's the key cog that's been here for the longest of almost everybody else on this team? He's the face of this franchise, if you want to say it, whatever you want to say. That guy needs to come out and show that he's got some, I don't know what you want to call it, balls, whatever. Come out and face the music. And that's been a problem. Like, I think this team was very accountable early on. And somewhere along the line, some of these guys have forgotten that they need to be accountable to the team, to the performance, to the effort on the ice. And when you get benched as a top line center, do you think that Steven Stamkos was dodging his media responsibilities after? It's not even about, again, it's not about us, but you owe it to the fans to explain what the hell happened that game. And again, I think that just it breeds the doubt and the seeds of doubt in this team that is it any different than last year? Are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to tank like they did in 2019? Like, I don't know. But I at the end of the day, I think there was no reason for us to be having to ask questions yesterday about this ahead of a big game against the Boston Bruins. That should have been done. Mark Scheifele knows better. Should have done it. Should have figured it out. Didn't.
Well, I'll say.
And then
let me say this about that is that it was a missed opportunity for Mark Scheifele.
It was.
To get up, to stand up, to show accountability, to be a leader. And listen, it's one thing to say it to the fans through the media. I think it's also important as to what that says to the rest of the team. Like, I still, the fact that it was Nino Niederreiter that went out there and said all the right things, and notice how Bones also mentioned that when they were stapled to the bench at that point, Nino was the guy that was still being loud, was being, was injecting that energy, was supporting his teammates. Honestly, the whole thing with Scheifele, it feels like a guy that's feeling sorry for himself. And That's not going to win you hockey games. That's
that's
not
a
going to make
problem
the
at this time of
playoffs.
year.
Well,
Yeah.
it is. It is.
It's a
And
problem.
like I said yesterday, you can get past a lot of that if you go out and dominate the next game and put a team on your back. They certainly tried to do that. But really, when you talk about the leadership group in the most adverse times of this season, there's one guy that stepped up. It's been Josh Morrissey. He's done it on the ice. He's done it in front. And that's why I think most of us would agree that it's a fait accompli that he is the next captain of the Winnipeg Jets. But I think it was an opportunity for Scheifele to really show leadership and to be a guy that says, I am a leader. We need to be better. I don't think we would have gotten as thoughtful, honest comments as we did from Nino Niederreiter. But at the same time, you certainly would prefer, and if I'm the head coach, I certainly would prefer. And listen, Bones had some interesting comments yesterday about that as well, Scott, when he was asked about the players not speaking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're adults, I think is what he said, right? I mean, it's up to them to do it. And it is, it's not up to the head coach to always cover for these guys. And I know that this team has been, in some ways blessed with a head coach, for some of these players that would control the narrative and they could hide behind. Rick Bowness hasn't, for the most part, allowed any of that to happen this year. The players go out and play. The players are the ones that have to motivate themselves. That's their job. Rick Bowness needs to make them ready, do the X's and O's and all this stuff, have the game plan. But it's on the players to get themselves out for a game. It's on the players to be accountable to their own play. I think you've seen that from some, again, like I look at some of the guys, and we're talking about guys that step up and talk, like Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt and Nino Niederreiter. But all these guys have played on other teams. All these guys have played on good teams. All of these guys have been far in the playoffs, Stanley Cup finals for a couple of them, maybe all of them actually, or at least two of them. There is they know, right? Like they know what it's like. They can see the signs that maybe some of these other guys can't see because they've been here for the whole time. They don't know what it's like in other organizations or anything like that. And I struggle sometimes to understand but then I do see why maybe this team struggles at times, because when it gets to, when the proverbial poop hits the fan, right? This team has guys that have stepped up at times. And I thought Josh Morrissey has really broken that mold in terms of, here's a guy who doesn't get down on himself, doesn't feel sorry for himself. He takes it upon himself to do it. We saw that in those games. We obviously the one game where he scores that goal after everybody's booing, and Josh Morrissey has risen to the occasion. But I still think there's guys in this dressing room with this Jets team that are incapable of doing that, or just don't do it. And that's a problem when you need guys like Paul Stastny in the past, or now Nino Niederreiter to kind of glue it all back together at times. Blake Wheeler said last week, great quote, right? I mean, good teams are forged in fire and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but the Jets have had a lot of fire, right? I'm not sure they forged a good team out of it yet. I mean, and that's part of the problem. I mean, this team has gotten upset because people doubt them in the past and whatever, but we haven't always had a good reason to believe in what they're doing, right? And so at the end of the day, I think, again, it'll be a small thing to a lot of people that Mark Scheifele didn't talk after the game. But again, I think it speaks to a much larger problem, and I hate bringing this up because it's over and Mark spoke yesterday. But again, I think it speaks to a problem with this team that has permeated for a while, and we'll see how it plays out over the end of the year. But if the Jets end up missing the playoffs, it's just another one of those things where this team just wasn't mentally capable of making the playoffs. They have all the skill in the world, and I think we've said that, but it's just there's something that's been missing, and so there's a big test coming up. This is a huge test for this team because the last time they were in a playoff fight like this, in my opinion, was 2019-20, and they were going into, and then COVID hit, but they were they beat Edmonton that 4-2 game to keep themselves in that, and there was a big race with Vancouver. Edmonton, I believe Calgary might have been in that at the time. I don't know what the teams were. But yeah, this is a true test of their mental fortitude, because this is where you have to keep your wits about you. Because you can't let a bad game snowball into another one, or a good game where you play well snowball into bad feelings about your team and just feeling upset and frustrated and not being able to park that and move forward. So Scott,
I
think there's a lot going on.
Interesting comment from Dijon Carey in chat.
Sure.
If this team doesn't make the playoffs, it's time for a rebuild and change in leadership, both on and off the ice.
100%.
You can't keep believing in what you have if it keeps showing the same results. Yep. I'm not sure that isn't necessary, regardless of whether this team gets to the finish line and makes the Stanley Cup tournament or finishes on the outside. I think Josh Morrissey is going to be the culture carrier going forward. But I'm in it again. We're going to focus in on these games and this next run. But I mean, from where I'm at, and this goes back to what I was thinking going into the trade deadline. I mean, I think we know for the most part what this team is. I think we know what this core is right now, and I think it's quite clear, and I'm sure the general manager knows as well, that change is coming, and maybe significant change to that core is going to be some of the surgery that's needed, and frankly, it's going to be forced anyways by the contract situations. Speaking of contract situations, what do you make of what Bones had to say about Pierre-Luc Dubois, and what is going on with him?
I have no idea. I was talking to Ted Wyman, colleague at the Winnipeg Sun, about it. I don't get it, man. So it's obviously it's not a concussion, right? Because if it was a concussion, it would not be up to Pierre-Luc Dubois to play or not, right? Mm-hmm. There's a medical procedure, protocol, all that. So what happens from there? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know what's going on. Is he injured? Is he not wanting to play while he's injured? Did something happen? I don't know. I don't want to speculate on an injury. I don't know what's happened. I've tried to reach out to a couple of people to find out. But I just don't know at the moment. And that's kind of, it doesn't sound good at the, when you think about it. I'm trying to see if, maybe Rick Bowness just didn't say it the right way, but there's not a lot of room for ambiguity in what he said. So, I know you got Kenny coming on. He's waiting in the green room there. So maybe he has a better sense of it. I just don't. I mean, it to me, I mean, the one way I'd look at it is he came back, he made the decision, or maybe the team made a decision that he was okay to play, and then he re-aggravated the same injury. And maybe that's just all that happened. Maybe this time it's up to him, whether it was him that made the decision or not, whoever, to, come back. Does he feel 100%? Maybe he tried to come back too early and he wasn't 100%, and this time they want to make sure, because it's really important now. I try not to think of it as being anything more nefarious than maybe just that at the moment. But until he's back on the ice, I mean, I don't know. Is he? Somebody tweeted at me, is he Kawhi Leonarding it? And I don't know. I don't know.
Management.
So yeah. I think can you still hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think my computer's dying out of power here. So
yeah, no problem. But listen, Scotty, thanks for doing this. We'll catch up next week as we continue to see if this Winnipeg Jets team can stay above the playoff line with the Calgary Flames and Nashville Predators hot in pursuit. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Good stuff. There's Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Ken Wiebe's coming up. We're going to continue our Jets conversation. Got to give a big shout out to our friends at Royal Sports for their amazing support of Winnipeg Sports Talk since day one. Royal is the sports superstore at 750 Pembina Highway with the best selection of licensed merchandise for sports fans of the Winnipeg Jets, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, National Hockey League, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, international soccer. And there's so much more than just the best selection of fan gear around. Snowboards, boots, bindings, just in time for spring break trips, and the best hockey selection in the city of both equipment, sticks, and everything else that comes along with the great game. Not to mention all the cool stuff over on the Kings skate, snow, and surf side of things. Pop down and see them at 750 Pembina Highway, or check them out on Instagram. Make sure you give them a follow at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Big shout out to our friends over at F Apparel as well. Guys, you ready for spring and summer? What's the wardrobe looking like? If you need to up your wardrobe game, one trip to F Apparel will take care of all of that. Custom suits beginning at just $400, not to mention chinos, golf pants, and custom shirts to be worn both tucked and untucked in the best selection of men's accessories around. Don't forget, if you're in a wedding party this summer, talk to the gang at F about a 15% discount for the entire wedding party when you get your suits from F Apparel. And if you have a 2023 graduate in the family, hook the young man up with the suit to take him to the next chapter of his life, and F Apparel will include a free custom shirt and tie valued at about $150. Pop down and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown. Online, you can make an appointment as well at ephaapparel.com. And hey, it is St. Patrick's Day today. I know the pubs and bars are going to be rocking tonight, but Saturday and Sunday, the place to be for watching the Winnipeg Jets will be your local Boston Pizza. 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon in Nashville, 6 o'clock on Sunday against the St. Louis Blues. No better place to watch the Jets on the big screen with big sound, taking down schooners, delicious Boston's wings, gourmet pizzas, and more delicacies on the new feature menu over at BP. And hey, if it's too cold, you're not going out, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's get back to the Jets. Kenny Wiebe joins us now. Lots to unpack with Ken now that he's back in the city from this road trip that we said was going to probably define the Jets season. Wiebe, how are you? What's going on? Great to have you back.
Andrew, great to be with you as well. It's a beautiful Friday so far. I'd like to get the temperature turned up a few degrees, but beautiful day for beautiful weekend for hockey. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, you're stretching the truth here. It is not a beautiful day outside right now. It is far from it. I can't believe that this
beautiful day for hockey.
St. Patrick's Day. You remember
March, Hustles. It's March.
You remember the year the Jets came back? St. Patrick's Day of 2012 it was 22 degrees that day. We spent we're out on the patio of the E&C till about 1 a.m. enjoying beautiful weather. Anyways, there's just another reason to be bent. The play of the hockey team, I think there's some good and bad. Bottom line is, I said the absolute minimum they could squeeze out of this last little bit was 5 points. They got it. But obviously not picking up anything in, two relatively well-played games against Carolina and the Boston Bruins has just, put them in a more precarious situation heading into Nashville so far. I mean, you were on the road. Many interesting stories coming out of that road trip. But overall, as a team, how would you say the Jets handled this daunting task of some of the best teams in the league over the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, Huss, I mean, I think there were stretches of good, for sure, out of that patch of games. I know you mentioned the white knuckle ride on several of your hits with the on the Jets front this week, and I would venture to say that white knuckle ride will be continuing for the bulk of these final 13, based on what we've been seeing. I would say the Jets structurally were pretty good against the Boston Bruins. They were mostly good against the Carolina Hurricanes, but the errors that have been transpiring have been costly ones, and they've ended up in the back of the net. So signs of life for sure. I would say that, in terms of their process, there have been a lot of steps forward, Huss, but right now those steps forward haven't led to a bucket load of points, and the teams below them have suddenly turned the heat up, for lack of a better term, pun intended when it comes to the Flames. But the Jets are going to need to combine process with results over this next stretch of games, or suddenly they're going to find themselves in must-win territory, literally and figuratively. So overall, I think the Jets are playing fine, Huss, but the problem is so many teams around them have found a way to elevate their game. And we know this. The Jets, this is not a recent problem, Huss. The first 30 games, 20 wins, 9 losses, 1 tie. Since that time, they are a sub-500 hockey team. And sub 500 hockey does not get the job done, A, for qualifying for the playoffs, B, for making any sort of run in the playoffs if they are able to qualify. That's not to say it's all doom and gloom. I would say the Jets had a big response from their top line to the benching, which we know was one of the biggest storylines of the entire week. That line had 16 shots on goal and 25 attempts in a game where they didn't score. And the best chances of the game were generated by A, Kyle Connor, B, Mark Scheifele, absolute robbery by Charlie McAvoy, and C, Nino Niederreiter. So if we were looking for a response from that trio, they got that. That's exactly what the Jets got. I mean, I say we as people who watch the team. I mean, we were certainly wondering what was going to transpire. We know the mood of Mark Scheifele was much different than the mood of Kyle Connor, but ultimately it doesn't matter what matters. It does matter what is spoken, but ultimately what happens on the ice is going to be what determines which way the season goes. I would say each member of that trio did their part in making sure that it wasn't a story that, festered beyond yesterday's game. We know you've discussed with other people, it probably would have gone away a little bit quicker had they spoken on Tuesday. But at the same time, Nino Niederreiter handled himself incredibly well and showed that even though he's been here for 5 minutes, he's already speaking like a leader on this team, Huss, right? Not only is he playing like a leader, he's already speaking like one. So
is that a positive, or does it maybe make it more glaring, the lack of that from some other very key, very important players of the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, so I'm not quite as bent out of shape as some folks are. Would I have, as someone who was there with Mike McIntyre and had asked first for Mark Scheifele and B, Kyle Connor, especially for Mark. Mark's an alternate captain and a guy who wants to be a captain. So to say I don't feel like it, I understand it's not the easiest thing to do or something that would be welcome, but it's part of the job. It comes with the territory. Nobody wants to be benched. I understand. I appreciate his honesty in saying that he was pissed off 2 days later, and we know he was pissed off at the time. Like that's a normal response. But I mean, just put it this way, Huss. I'm not sure. What really matters is how the players feel about it. And
well, that's what I wonder. And I wonder how that goes. I wonder how the other guys in that room look at that. No, I'm not wanted. I'm pissed off. Let Nino Niederreiter go and do it. That's been here for 2 weeks. And that was singled out by Rick Bowness for being the one guy that, while they were on the bench, was actually a very positive influence, was, being vocal, was trying to, encourage his teammates. Like, to me, the vision, like, this was a great opportunity for Mark to sort of step up and show that he is a leader and show that. And to me, it's a missed opportunity. But to your point, Ken, and it doesn't really matter what the fans think, I do wonder how that plays in a room where so much this year was made of accountability and the commitment they made to each other.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Huss, again, I would go back to this. I'm not sure that every player in the Jets room sees discussing with the media as a key part of accountability. The accountability, first and foremost, is to themselves, to the crest, and to their creed that they all signed after their trip to Banff. Would they consider this to be part of that? I'm not sure. I certainly didn't have any players come up to me privately or publicly saying, oh, I can't believe that player is doing that. I'm not saying that normally that they would. I'm just saying I'm not sure that it's as big an issue to them as it is maybe to us in the media or to the fan base. I would say ultimately how Mark plays is much more important than what he says. But at the same time, I think that was a situation where it would have been easier for him to just deal with it on Tuesday rather than Thursday. But that's my personal opinion. And I don't know how the players feel about that. I would just use this too. This is not a comparable, but it is a parallel. This reminds me of the days when Dustin Byfuglien was here and he chose to speak, whether it was once a month or twice a month or whatever else. And this didn't happen with any regularity, Huss. It was just one of the situations where I happened to be in a locker around Brian Little after Brian Little spoke when Dustin Byfuglien declined another interview opportunity. And Brian Little looked at Scott Brown and said, I'm not doing another interview until Buff gets out here. So is Brian Little in that old school approach? Do the younger players feel the same way? That I don't know. But I do know that at the time, that's the only reference point I can use. And it's an exaggeration because Mark Scheifele speaks a lot more than Dustin Byfuglien ever did. But if someone else has to answer for someone else with a lot of regularity, then I would say players would be, for lack of a better term, kind of could get pissed off about it. But I don't think a one-off like this, Huss, where a benching transpires, and let's be honest, this is the third time Mark has been benched in 10 seasons, or 10 full seasons, and then the cups of coffee he had at the prior 2 seasons. So I would say Mark has spoken more often than he has declined. Having said that, I think what got lost in the shuffle here, it would have been to Mark's benefit to get the story out of the way on Tuesday rather than have follow-up columns written on Wednesday, and then on Thursday morning when the Jets are preparing to play the best team in the NHL to be speaking about it on a day where, I'm not saying it altered his focus, but it was something that he would have preferred to not be talking about on a game day.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. And I think it would have been a benefit to the team as well. To be honest. Anyways, we could talk about this for a while. I think everyone knows what the most important response is what we see on the ice. What did you think of Connor and Scheifele in particular last night, considering the extra attention that they had and how important these guys are when they are really struggling to score goals?
Yeah, they were very good. Like I said, I thought they were among the best Jets players on the ice yesterday, Huss, specifically Connor. And conversely to what, Mark was quite curt in his interview with myself, Jeff Hamilton, and Paul Friesen, with those guys handling the bulk of the question asking. But it's ultimately how he played. And for me, Kyle Connor was very open. I liked his approach that he took to it. I liked that he admitted that, for a guy who's been struggling to score and who's used to scoring goals with great regularity, that it ticked him off that he didn't, when he gets a breakaway, generally he dekes the jock off the other goalie. And the fact that Andrei Vasilevsky kicked out the leg and stopped him, what a goal scorer should be ticked off about that, because nothing is ever automatic, but Kyle Connor doesn't miss a ton of those opportunities. To me, the biggest difference in Kyle Connor's game yesterday, skating better, and he was much more dangerous. We know that he's been getting chances, but they haven't been looking as dangerous. Yesterday, he looked dangerous, and that's exactly what the Jets need him to be down the stretch run here. We know his goal scoring is down from last year. It's a big dip between 47 and 20. We know that. That's obvious. But he's still over a point a game player. So we can't be standing here and saying, well, Mark Scheifele, who has 38 goals, and Kyle Connor, who has 73 points, they're not holding up their end of the bargain. That simply isn't the case. But during the stretch run, when it's been hard for them to score, those, and especially with Pierre-Luc Dubois having been out for so many games in this 10-game block, those guys have to pick up some of the slack. And right now, but let's not forget, Huss, and you mentioned this during the course of the week, Mark Scheifele was the best player on the ice for the Jets on Saturday night against the Florida Panthers. So it's not like he had a big wide swath of games where he was struggling. He wasn't struggling. He was playing quite well. And then, things kind of went sideways in that game where they were on the ice for 3 against. And we know what the numbers were. No 1 shot attempt, no shots on goal, 12 against, 3 in the back of the net. That's no good. That's not good enough for anyone. There were various levels of blame to go around. And in the game on Thursday, Huss, I'm sure some folks were thinking, here they go again. The line on the ice was the Scheifele line. There was an obvious turnover caused by Charlie Coyle on Nate Schmidt. A bit of a coverage lapse when Bertuzzi gets it behind the net. I think both wingers kind of got sucked down to Bertuzzi. That left Trent Frederick all alone in front. So a bunch of things went wrong in a short span of time. I not specifically, I don't think it was that line's fault, but I think one of the reads was off. And then they responded by playing very well throughout the course of the game. So now the fact that the Jets didn't score on Swayman was, I would say, Swayman played great, no doubt about it. But, if Mark Scheifele's shot from the crease isn't deflected by Charlie Coyle, are we having a different discussion today? I wonder about that. But that's to take nothing away from Boston. And people in our chat room last night after the game, Huss, saying that Boston was disinterested. That could not be further from the truth. This was a team that was ticked off themselves about having dropped 3 out of 4. And no, they didn't blow the doors off the Jets.
You know what they were last night, Ken? They were just comfortable. They were
but
just
comfortable playing with the lead
Yeah.
for 59 minutes.
Exactly.
And how many times have we seen the Jets look comfortable when they've led for a long stretch of time?
Not enough.
Not often.
I mean, if there was one thing that you saw from last night's game, I mean, the Jets were working hard. They were getting, some opportunities. But that was a team that just knew that they had their lead. They were going to do what they had to do, and they were going to get out of there with 2 points last night. And great teams that have been winning, that have found ways to win consistently, instill that in each other, and I think have that belief. And, as I said, I mean, I have no qualms whatsoever about the Jets' effort, throughout the game and in the third period. But I just kept looking at Boston and saying, this is a team, like, they don't need Marchand and Bergeron and Pasternak to go crazy or anything like that. They just need to keep doing what they're doing, and they'll be fine. And I mean, that was why it ended up with, they were able to take care of business in their own end. They didn't need to do much in front of Connor Hellebuck because I think in their minds they had plenty of cushion to get to the finish line and get out of the peg with 2 points.
Yeah, and to me, Huss, that's again, it's a compliment to the Bruins that they didn't need production from Pasternak or Marchand or Bergeron in that game. They got production from their third line, from their new addition, and then from Pavel Zacha, right? And that's the other thing. Yes, Connor Hellebuck gave up 2 goals in the first 4 shots, but then he didn't give up anything else. So to me, Hellebuck took care of his end of the bargain. Was he the second best goalie on the ice? Yes, that's because Swayman played very well. It's not because Hellebuck let his team down or anything like that. The first chance is a point blanker from the slot with no coverage, and the second one is a shot over his shoulder to a spot where it's hard for a goalie to get his glove into that situation. It was just over his collarbone. So people think, oh, well, why can't he get his glove on it? Well, just do it yourself, Huss. How easy is it to get your hand behind your head on a shot like that? It's not an easy thing to do. It was a well-placed shot. Some nights Hellebuck gets it, some nights he doesn't. I don't see that as a soft goal by any stretch. And ultimately, the Jets didn't score at the other end. So they needed to provide run support. The goals allowed, two allowed against Boston, that was a strong game. But back to the original point, the fact that Boston got the job done without high-end production, I mean, the Jets played the Boston Bruins tough in December also, and then the shot out of the dumping off the stanchion ended up on the stick of Pasternak and in the back of the net, and then the game totally turned around. So Boston, to me, looked fine. I mean, are they in a malaise? I mean, that's what they were talking about at the morning skate. They didn't look like they were in a malaise to me. Do they have another level to reach? Absolutely they do in terms of their skating, but their defending was high end. Like, that's how teams lead the league, Huss, by playing a pretty mostly suffocating style of hockey. Yes, sure, they got 35 shots, but the high danger chances were dead even, and they were basically 8-all, and most of them were from the outside, with the exception of a couple things. And Nate Schmidt rattles one off the crossbar. Scheifele hits some iron as well. But I mean, the Jets didn't get to the inside, but it wasn't because of a willingness, or it wasn't a willingness factor. Boston is so good at boxing out. The Jets had trouble getting to the blue paint. And that's why Swayman had, a relatively easy night when it came to a 35-save shutout.
Ken Wiebe of Sportsnet.ca, and of course, Kenny and Rennie with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Let's move on and look ahead to tomorrow and this next week. Nashville, the St. Louis Blues, back at home for the Arizona Coyotes, and then on the road with the Anaheim Ducks before an afternoon game a week Saturday against the Los Angeles Kings. Ken, it's one thing, you need a win. This team needs to go on a run right now. They need to take advantage of a lighter schedule considering what they've been. And I guess you could say that if you'd have some confidence that if they played consistently like they have over these last few games, you probably should expect some results. But it's not about expecting right now. It's about actually getting out and doing it. Just your thoughts on the next 10 days for the Winnipeg Jets and how that is going to frame their position going down the final stretch.
Well, Huss, they survived the season-defining road trip by winning the first 2 games and, quite frankly, having a chance against Carolina had they been a little bit more opportunistic. And, I know there's a lot of debate about the wraparound. I didn't like the wraparound goal at all. I understand that maybe there was an issue, but if the stick is down, you can still cover off a potential pass.
Oh, you're talking about Dave?
Yeah, I don't think it was Riddick's fault. I just think that goal certainly hurt the Jets' cause, but they needed a little better finish at the other end as well. The next 10 days are critical, Huss. Just like the last road trip was, the next 10 days are going to teach us all we need to know about the Winnipeg Jets. That's not to say that they can't do anything if they don't play well during the stretch, but the cushion is over. The cushion that was very comfortable, the team that was once battling for first in the Central Division and the Western Conference, right now, Huss, it's hard to envision a scenario that the Jets finish anywhere other than 8th in the Western Conference if they make the playoffs. Could they catch Seattle? It's certainly possible, but they will have to go 9-4 or some semblance of that, or 8-4-1 in order to, be really comfortable, unless those other teams fall off. And I know you had Murad on, and he mentioned Dom's strength of schedule. And strength of schedule is a good thing to look at in terms of the mathematics. But Huss, at this time of year, what do we know? Those teams at the bottom of the standings are playing super freely. So yes, the mathematics say this, but the mathematics would have said the Nashville Predators should have beat the Chicago Blackhawks on Thursday night, and the Boston Bruins should have beat the Chicago Blackhawks as well. So strength of schedule is interesting for us to look at. But at this time of year, those teams at the bottom of the standings, they don't care about strength of schedule. They're in next year country. They're playing a very loose and often wide open style of game. And some teams tighten up when they play teams like that. And you make one mistake, it's in the back of the net, and all of a sudden the team tightens up, and then they struggle to score at the other end. So does the schedule maker favor the Jets down the stretch? I would say yes. But Calgary has a similar argument.
Calgary has the exact same thing. I think they both have 4 games above playoff teams and 9 above teams above the playoff line. So to me, it's exactly the same. And listen, I'm from a Jets fan perspective. And again, this could be, I could eat my words tomorrow based on what happens against the Predators. But to me, it's the Flames that are the number one threat for that spot. And I know Nashville's got a few more games.
Their schedule is tough. I understand that.
Well, and I just think Calgary's a better team. I think Calgary's more dangerous. And I think even in these games where Calgary hasn't been winning, they are showing that sort of fight that you'd expect from a Daryl Sutter team at this point of the year. And they're not going to go away. And we saw a perfect example of that last night against the Vegas Golden Knights when they really took it to Vegas, who is one of those playoff teams, scoring 4 in the third period, winning 7-2. And that's a big, big win for a Calgary team that, is desperately trying to get on a bit of a roll of their own. Now, I did think that there was the possibility going on to that road trip that we could be talking about a team that was tied for a playoff spot. They did leave a point on the table against the Coyotes earlier this week. But Calgary, to me, is the problem. Although the Jets have 2, Nashville's the other. They can sort of handle Nashville tomorrow if they take care of business on the road. But put it this way, Ken, I think this is going to be neck and neck right up to that game in early April between the Calgary Flames and Winnipeg Jets here at Canada Life Centre.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Huss, with one exception. We don't expect Nashville to hang in there, but here's the problem with the theory. We thought that, I think, 2 years ago, and UC Saros basically put the team on his back and willed them into the playoffs in the COVID year, right? So
well, I'm not writing them off. I think that it's more likely that Calgary is the team that negates Winnipeg.
No, I agree with you.
Having a whiteout.
I would say the only other problem with that is that if that would assume that the Jets take care of business in the head-to-head matchups, because if they lose both, then suddenly it's all bets are off. But I agree with you. And here's the thing about Calgary that we know. They've set a record for most times out shooting the opponent by 10 plus shots and losing games. So, and I think that another example was that game against Arizona where they lost was overtime, right? So Calgary's an interesting study. They're a team that they've sort of gone in the opposite of the Jets, right? So the Calgary Flames had a bunch of upheaval in the summer, Huss, right? A lot of core pieces in, a lot of core pieces out, a lot of guys starting to try to get comfortable with their new line mates, their new surroundings, all of those things. The Jets had continuity, and that continuity helped them at the start of the year. But now as the year's gone on, the breakdowns are happening, and they haven't been able to elevate. Whereas Calgary, whose goaltending has kind of been a little bit suspect at times, with all due respect to Jacob Markstrom, and Dan Vladar had a nice stretch at times, but when Markstrom is playing at the Vezina-like level he played at last year, Calgary's incredibly dangerous. Even though they don't score easily, they've got enough talent on their team. They work incredibly hard, and they make life difficult on their opponents. So I agree with you. They're probably a better bet to push the Jets. And that April 5th game, I think it is going to be absolutely massive. But the problem with the Flames, Huss, their consistency or lack thereof has been the death knell of their season so far. The fact that they've stayed in the race despite being so up and down is a testament to them. Now for the Jets, take care of their own business. That's all they need to do. If they do that, they should be just fine. But they're pushed up against the ropes here. They've been hit with a bunch of haymakers, and now we're going to see if they can punch back or pick themselves off the mat. And Huss, this is a big picture issue here. If the Jets don't find a way, we already expect it to be quite a summer. It could be very Flames-like in the summer for the Jets this year, but if they somehow didn't make the playoffs, that process gets accelerated, however many times that you want to use a number to pinpoint it. But should the Jets get in, that's the other part for them. At this point, it looks like they peaked early. They peaked in the first 30 games. But if they're able to sort of get their structural portion of the game settled in, their power play was 0 for 5 yesterday. That's not good enough. But they looked like an effective power play in the first period for sure. They had tons of chances. Even Brendan Dillon mentioned it in his postgame. What do we talk about all the time? It's not just production, even though production obviously is important. They generated a lot of momentum for their team with the power play. They just didn't convert. So the Jets still have a chance to get themselves rectified and moving and seeing what they can do with that. But right now, Huss, they're looking like they're going to be staring at a date with Vegas or Colorado or Dallas or Minnesota. And, they're going to have to play incredible
tea time.
No, of course that's true for them, Huss, but it's going to be a daunting task, even if the Jets get in. But that's they sometimes play their best hockey when they're in the underdog role, Huss. And This year is another great example. Expectations were lower going outside expectations. Yes, the Jets' own internal expectations were to put the disappointment of missing the playoffs behind them. But most people had them as a bubble team, maybe wild card. Maybe if a lot of things went their way, they'd be third. Well, now they are in exactly the position that most people expected them to be in. So rather than when Rick Bowness was talking and you and I were talking about this, the responsibility of having to battle for the Western Conference title, that seemed like it was too much for the Jets, Huss, right? I mean, there's no other way to look at it right now. I don't think this was a team that got fat and lazy on its press clippings, but they didn't find a way to get better. And a couple months ago when the Jets were in that spot, Minnesota looked like they might not even make the playoffs themselves, and now they're battling for first. So it's a long season. There's a lot of ups and downs and swings, but right now the Jets are looking for their next upswing. And although they've had a couple of moments where they look like they might be taking those steps, like the game against Edmonton, but even in that game, Jack Campbell didn't supply strong enough goaltending. In the game against Florida, the Jets had a couple leads that they didn't hold, but they found a way to get it done. I thought they were pretty good against Tampa Bay. They did a very good job of limiting the top line, which we know Tampa's also going through a bit of a funk right now, Huss. They're barely any time removed from benching their own top line for the third period of a game. And then the next night they didn't respond, but they were much better since. So teams go through these different ups and downs. But the other thing for me, Huss, and I know you know this, so Wednesday when my flight was delayed, I made a point of getting down to Scotiabank Arena to watch 2 periods of 2 of the Stanley Cup contenders, the Colorado Avalanche, who have been playing very, very well as they've moved up the standings, and the Leafs, who even themselves, the Leafs right now look like a team that is ready for the playoffs to begin, but they need to elevate their games. See, 2 teams that we see as high octane, they played a very low scoring game because those are the kind of games teams will need to play in order to advance in the playoffs. So A lot of teams are making adjustments. I think the Jets look like they've made those adjustments in the last stretch of games as well, but they still need to they need to clean up a few things. If they clean up a few things, yes, they can compete with these top teams also, but they need to do it with consistency during the 13-game stretch, or else they could be looking at a long off season of regret.
No, there's no doubt about that. Ken Wiebe's with us. Wiebe, what's going on with Pierre-Luc Dubois?
Yeah, Huss, I mean, I don't. This is interesting to me, and I know that Scott was just on here saying that he doesn't think it was a concussion. So for me, I'm on the opposite side. The reason why I think, and I don't have proof of this, but if we're following the bouncing ball, Pierre-Luc Dubois was injured in the game against the San Jose Sharks. And I asked Rick Bowness flat out if it was from the hit from Mario Ferraro, and he said yes. So if Pierre-Luc Dubois is dealing with, and I'm not saying that he can't be doing this, but in most scenarios, Huss, if you're dealing with a shoulder or a collarbone or some upper body issue, it wasn't a crazy hard hit, but it was an awkward hit. So if you're dealing with a upper body issue that requires some level of treatment, you're on the plane and on that road trip, Huss. But if you have a concussion or post-concussion symptoms or whiplash, you're not getting on the plane, which I think also maybe explains why he went from being a game time decision to being scratched against the Minnesota Wild. So the plan was for him to be a game time decision, but I don't think any of his symptoms came up until the Tuesday morning, which is why he finished the game and was on the ice when the hurdle goal was tied. So the thing about concussions, it's not like a sprain or whatever else. Concussions don't have a strict
But I guess the question is, and this is why Billeck brought it up, and I have to say I sort of agree.
I read the quotes.
Since when do they just say it's up to the player? I mean, with concussions, I mean, you're either good to go and you're cleared, or he's obviously been cleared if they're comfortable with him playing. It just seems very strange that it's up to the player. And I could understand it if there was a nagging injury or something, he didn't know whether he'd be able to go. But it's a lot different than the way most of the other concussions have been handled if this one's just being left up to the player.
Well, I think too, and some of that is context. I mean, I saw the full quote from Rick, and I wouldn't put as much stock into the words. Yes, I know he said it was up to the player, but here's another example of when it's up to the player. So we're at the skate in Raleigh, Huss, the morning skate the other day. Josh Morrissey is going to be a game time decision. He went through the normal routine. He was with Neil Pionk. At the end of that skate, he had a 5-minute conversation with athletic therapist Rob Millette. And I don't, whether Josh said, I don't feel quite 100%, or if he said, I'm not quite sure, that's where the player has to let the athletic therapist know. And I know Rick said it's up to the player, but ultimately, there still has to be the element where it's a combined decision. It's not as simple as the player saying, yes, I'm ready to go. But this is also part of the problem, and this is what we talk about all the time. If there was a little bit more, and I understand players don't want to be, targeted a specific area with injuries, but here's another example where transparency would be helpful, because now you're not left to guess or have a hypothetical about whether it's a concussion or a shoulder or something or an elbow or whatever the case may be. And I understand why people would be up in arms and would be, thinking maybe this is something that it's not. But I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois is not going. Yesterday, Huss, he was in the morning skate on his regular line with Kyle Connor. It's not like he took the morning skate and then said, I don't really feel like playing. Obviously, something was bothering him, whether that was remnants of the concussion. I don't think in this case that it was the concussion still lingering, because then he wouldn't be on the plane. So that's what causes the complication. And I understand people will say, oh, well, he's just protecting himself because he wants a big fat contract in the offseason. Pierre-Luc Dubois has had a great year. If he wants to really cash in, the best thing for him to do if he's healthy would be to lead the Jets into the playoffs by being as productive as he was in the first 50 games. So this isn't a guy just saying, I don't really feel like playing down the stretch. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a competitor. If he could play, he would be playing. And I think the other part about the context of what Rick was saying, he wants him to be able to make sure he gets through the game. So you don't want to be in a situation where, yes, you're trying to try to gut it out. And then on the third shift, the guy gets hurt. Now the Jets are playing 11-7 on a weekend. They've got a back-to-back with 2 Central Division opponents. But if he can play, he's going to be playing. He's not going to just say, yeah, I don't really feel like playing. I mean, that's not what's happening here. And I know that's not what you're suggesting us, but I do agree that this is a great example of transparency would be helpful in this situation, because then it would eliminate a lot of the other question marks and speculation.
Well, hey, quickly, assuming that Dubois, let's say he comes back tomorrow or on the weekend, will we see Connor back with Dubois? Because I would imagine that Rick Bowness would have maybe done that earlier right now, considering the power outage of Kyle Connor. Well,
that's what they ran in the morning skate yesterday, Huss. It was Wheeler with Dubois and Connor, and that obviously put Ehlers with Scheifele and Niederreiter. So I have no other expectation other than that was the plan had he been able to play. So yeah, I do think that they're going to go back to that. And we know Kyle Connor has been at his most productive over the last 2 seasons while riding shotgun with Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's able to use his physical frame and bring defenders to him and create opportunities for him in a little different manner than Mark Scheifele does when those two are together. So yeah, I do think those guys would be back together. And obviously that's interesting. I mean, I know you've debated it. We've debated it on our show. It looked like that meant Nemesnikov now goes onto the checking line with Lowry and Appleton, and then Barron goes down to the 4th. But I mean, we'll see if that's actually the case, because quite frankly, I've liked a lot of what I've seen from Nemesnikov and Ehlers also. So there's a lot of options at the disposal of Rick Bowness, but not all of those options have led directly to goal scoring right now, which is why I think the blender could be getting quite a few turns in this next little stretch here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. The one thing I don't think is going to be blended very much is the decision on the starting goaltender. I don't know about you, but I mean, considering what we saw last week in the back-to-backs and the fact that he didn't play against Carolina, I know we'll see him tomorrow afternoon, and I would imagine we'll probably see him on Sunday. Might Connor Hellebuyck just basically play every game? Rick Bowness has said they're in the playoffs right now. Well, you're playing your best goalie if you're in a playoff game right now. When do you expect we'll see Big Save Dave, or is this going to be a long run of Hellebuyck to try to get the Jets to the finish line?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how the weekend goes, and obviously with the standings tightening again here, Hellebuyck will be busy, but no, I don't see him making 13 starts, Huss. So, I mean, I see 10 plus, maybe 11. I think that there's an outside chance we would see Riddick on Tuesday against Arizona, unless the Jets get swept on the weekend. Then yes, go Hellebuyck. But yeah, part of the reason why Riddick started on Thursday, I think, was to leave the door open for Hellebuyck to go through his 4th back-to-back here on Sunday night, especially with afternoon game followed by a night game. And then depending on how those games go, and we know Arizona's played well lately, but here's the thing, Huss. If a team can't play its backup against teams like Arizona, then they should have a different backup. So, and Dave Riddick has, even though he's given up a couple of goals he would like back in his last, let's say for sure, 3 of the 4 starts and maybe 4 of the 4, he's still given them quality net minding. He's got 9 wins, and I think that we may see him on Tuesday. If the Jets don't do well on the weekend, then that plan could be moved. But I understand the Jets fans want Hellebuyck or bust, but if running Hellebuyck or bust means running him into the ground, then do you want that? You want him to have some gas in the tank when the playoffs arrive. Now, I understand the Jets have to get there first. I'm with you, Huss, but I think that Riddick's going to get 2 starts at least down the stretch here, depending on how the team plays in front of him.
Well, listen, Kenny, we're looking forward to the game tomorrow, and certainly looking forward to you and Sean doing your thing afterwards tomorrow afternoon and Sunday night, and we'll look forward to catching up next week. Have a great weekend. A happy St. Paddy's Day. Don't get too crazy tonight. It's an afternoon game tomorrow, Ken.
Yeah, don't worry. I will make curfew tonight for sure. And I'm sorry I didn't get back in time for the wrestling. It looked like it was just an absolutely tremendous event, Huss. I'm guessing that you enjoyed it quite a lot.
We had a great crew. We had an amazing time. It was quite the spectacle and quite the show. And it would have been great, but you were busy working, getting those air miles and getting back in time for the game tomorrow night. Ken, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, you bet, Huss. Thanks for having me. And I will be doubling down on what Mike McIntyre said. Get on the Bo Bichette for MVP watch on the Coolbet lines, my man, on the weekend, and enjoy the football talk. Pretty interesting times with Mr. Rogers bringing his neighborhood to the swamplands in the Meadowlands.
Well, we're going to get the latest on all of that with Hacksaw coming up in just a minute. Take it easy, Wiebe.
Cheers, my man.
We will be talking a little football. Of course, we had a great chat with Wade Miller yesterday on the 2025 Grey Cup coming to Winnipeg, and just counting down the days for training camp to get back to IG Field this year. Of course, Princess Auto, as Wade mentioned, is the place to be, the Princess Auto tailgate zone before every Bomber game. Princess Auto, huge sponsors of the Bombers. And, of course, curling in Canada, along with some of Manitoba's best teams, including Reed Carruthers, who, by the way, just added Brad Jacobs on a permanent basis yesterday to Team Carruthers. That is huge news. We'll have to talk to Reed about that in the coming days. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Big shout out to our great sponsors at Culligan Water. Family owned for over 65 years in Winnipeg, with everything you need, including water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, drinking water systems, citywide water delivery services, and commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Pop down and see them at 1200 Sargent Avenue, or find out more on what they can do for you and your family online at drinkculligan.com. And hey, of course, it is St. Patrick's Day. But if you want to keep it Canadian when you make your trip to the MLCC, make sure you pick up Canada's favorite Canadian rye, the Classic Canadian Club. By the way, CC and Ginger now available in single 473 milliliter cans. You can find those at Manitoba Liquor Marts or your local beer vendor. If you don't see it at your spot, make sure to ask for it. And of course, don't forget, a week today, flash sale, CC 12-year reserve on sale for just $24 and change, down from $32 regularly from March 24th to 26th. And tomorrow, the 41-year reserve of the Canadian Club Chronicles, available in very limited quantities at your local Manitoba Liquor Marts. All right, we will have marbles coming up in a minute. We've talked a lot of Jets. Excuse me, we've talked a lot of Jets today. But there's a lot going on in a wild week in the National Football League, and had to get our resident expert on all things sports, Mr. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, back. Saw, great to have you back on. Missed you for a couple weeks, but we got a lot to talk about coming out of the first few days of the new league year. How are you?
Hey, Hustler. If I look frazzled, yeah, I am. What an unbelievable 4 days in the National Football League. My head is about to blow off my shoulders. There's so much to cover and to keep track of. In the first 4 days of NFL free agency, 105 players changed teams, and we had 5 significant trades, and we're, of course, waiting for the parameters of the Green Bay Packer-New York Jet trade to take place. It's absolutely stunning. A lot of this is driven by salary cap issues. I think the shocker to me is not just Aaron Rodgers saying, I'm going to the New York Jets, do the deal, not just Ezekiel Elliott being released by the Dallas Cowboys because he refused to take a massive pay cut. But I think that the shocker to me is the star teams that were in the playoffs, January into February, 49ers, Kansas City, Eagles, have all taken massive hits in free agency. And you would think, A, teams would want to keep some of their key core players, or B, key core players have had the taste of the playoffs and the Super Bowl, would want to stay. And instead, guys are gone everywhere. San Francisco has lost 9 players. Kansas City has lost 6. Philadelphia has lost an entourage of people from their defense. So, I mean, this has just been a stunning 4 or 5 days in free agency, and virtually all the big names, with the exception of the Baltimore quarterback, have signed contracts to go elsewhere. So something's amiss, something's changed, or maybe it's just all driven by half the world's got bad salary cap problems.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Let's start off with Rodgers. He kept everybody waiting, then went on Pat McAfee and said, hey, this isn't about me. I've told them I'm going to the Jets. So what's the holdup? And what do you expect the compensation to be once this finally gets done?
Compensation is a piece of the holdup, and finagling and moving money around in the Jets salary cap department is the second piece of the conversation. I was told Green Bay wanted number one, and the Jets said, no, we're not trading number one for a 38-year-old quarterback. Green Bay came back and said, we'll take a 2, which I think is like, it's a steep price, but you do it. But then Green Bay came back a third time and said, actually, we'll take a 2 because he's going to play this year. And if he signs an extension to stay, we want another 2. And I think the Jets backed away from that and said, 2 number 2s is too high for a 38-year-old quarterback, regardless of how long he plays. The financials, he's got a $58 million package deal that they've got to restructure and spread out over a couple of years to help the Jets with the cap. I think they'll get that done. Green Bay's taken a $40 million pay hit this week the minute that trade is consummated. But they got Jordan Love, and they've had him for 3 years. They believe he is ready to be the starting quarterback. But the Packers are kind of wiped out of doing anything in free agency because of the cap hit they're going to take. Next year, they're going to have more money than God to spend. So the Rodgers thing to me is stunning. I think the issue is, did he not learn anything from Brett Favre and how Favre handled his business, and then how Favre went to the Jets, and that did not work out? And I think the other item is just the fact that he had a good relationship with Matt LaFleur, and they run a lot of games. And now that thing is all coming apart at the seams. You know, he's lost his tight end. Robert Tonyan's gone to the Bears last night. Yesterday afternoon, Alan Lazard jumped from Green Bay to the New York Jets. So suddenly, because of what AR did, all these other guys are leaving Green Bay. So, and the Packers are frozen because of the salary cap hit they're taking. So that's a big storyline on the Green Bay, and I would assume in the next couple of days we'll get the compensation terms and we'll get the financial data.
Well, and it is, what is interesting about all of that is the fact that, you know, reportedly Green Bay has been all in on moving Aaron Rodgers out and turning the page and moving over to Jordan Love and seeing what they have in a guy that they used that pick, probably foolishly, considering the way that pick could have been used elsewhere to help them win in the last couple seasons. But it certainly is a big part of this offseason conversation. Well, while we're talking about quarterbacks, Lee, we have seen plenty of QBs move around. I mean, you want to give us a quick trip on the quarterback carousel right now from your perspective?
Well, aside from Rodgers, I think I told you a couple of weeks ago the first domino that was going to fall was going to be Derek Carr.
Yeah.
I was surprised he went to New Orleans, but he's got a relationship there with that head coach. I thought he was a perfect fit to go to Green Bay with Frank Reich, but then not Green Bay, Carolina with Frank Reich. But then Carolina made the trade to get the number 1 pick in the draft from the Chicago Bears, so they're going to take a college quarterback. But as soon as Carr, that domino fell, then I thought a lot of other things were going to happen very quickly, and it did. Garoppolo wound up with the Raiders. Everybody that I had communicated with said Garoppolo's going to the Houston Texans because of past relationships with D'Amico Ryans. That did not happen. He relinked with Josh McDaniels. Of course, they were in New England in Jimmy G's early years. Sam Darnold, who's kind of bounced around, a number 1 pick, who's, I think, a great physical specimen, but just had a lot of injuries, gone from the Jets to Carolina. He is now the only healthy quarterback in the building with the 49ers. So he's going to get a chance to probably play there early on. Baker Mayfield is landed in Tampa Bay on a low-money contract. I was on another talk show, and they asked my opinion about what's happened to Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield is Doug Flutie, and I think the big issue is the more these smart guy defensive coordinators compile video on people, you know, you ask your Blue Bomber people about that, you'll figure out things, how to defend a quarterback, and you'll figure out how to take his strengths away, and you'll figure out how to put him in bad situations. And I think that's what's happened with Baker Mayfield. The longer he's played in the league, people have figured him out. So he's on probably a 1-year rental in Tampa. Jacoby Brissett, who I think is a very serviceable veteran quarterback. You know, he was an emergency guy in Indy, then in Cleveland. Brissett has signed a contract. He's gone to Washington. He might be the starting quarterback for Ron Rivera's team right now. Taylor Heineke, who is a real serviceable Washington starter, has gone to Atlanta. He's going to be the backup to the kid quarterback Desmond Ridder. Andy Dalton has bounced into Carolina, ex-Bengal star. New Orleans has moved around recently. He's going to be either the starting quarterback in Carolina until the first-round draft pick is ready, or he will be the counsel for whoever the first-round draft pick is that Carolina takes off the top of the board. Jarrett Stidham, who the Raiders kept talking about, we like him. He's gone. He's left Las Vegas. He's gone to Denver to be a backup there to Russell Wilson with the Broncos. And Marcus Mariota just signed with Philadelphia. Gardner Minshew's kind of bounced around. He's landed in Indianapolis if they don't get access to the top pick or one of the top picks in the draft. And maybe the surprise one to me is Mike White. I thought he did really well as a young quarterback under fire with the New York Jets. He had a couple of big 300-yard games and evidently read the writing on the wall and decided, I'm not staying in New York. They can have Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, and he's gone to Miami, and he's going to be the insurance policy if Tua gets hurt, and Tua always gets hurt. So I think it's really been a wild first week of free agency, and the only big name that's left on the board is the guy in Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, and that is so complex to figure out. So that's a summary of what's happened at the most important position in the NFL, quarterback.
Lee Hacksaw Hamilton's with us. Hacksaw, you mentioned Carolina getting Andy Dalton in the first pick. Last Friday was the big trade of the Bears moving off of number 1 to Carolina for a haul of picks and DJ Moore. Just thoughts on that trade and maybe a couple of the other actual trade transactions we've seen in the league.
I would say win-win for both. Chicago, Hustler, has turned their roster upside down. Had a lot of cap space, had the most cap space of anybody on the planet. I think they've signed 9 free agents, and some of these guys are younger veterans who can play and have had success other places. But I think Chicago, obviously trading down and stockpiling more picks is a real positive. From Carolina's perspective, boy, did they pay a steep price. DJ Moore, pretty good wide receiver. Chicago had no wide receiver, so that helps them a great deal. But by giving up 4 picks, a one next year plus a 2 and a 3, that's a lot of currency. So they're going to have to hit the jackpot on the right quarterback, and this is what this next month is going to be all about. Will be the pro days, the private meetings, the whiteboard sessions, for them to find out whether Bryce Young is the real deal or whether he's too undersized, too frail, or whether C.J. Stroud, who's a big, strong stud, can really be a good quarterback, because he tailed off the second half of last season at Ohio State when their run game went away. He just was not the same quarterback. But they got Frank Reich, who I like a great deal as an offensive mind. He's got a world of experience. I thought he got screwed in Indianapolis. I thought he was out here with the San Diego Chargers, and I just thought he was a real bright light guy. So it's going to take them some time. Andy Dalton is a good rental to help the kid. I don't think whoever the kid is, he's going to be the starter unless they're blown away by what they see on a whiteboard and his ability to read defenses and progressions and do all the other things that young quarterbacks have to do to be good right out of the gates. I think it was win-win for both.
Hey, just before we go, Hacksaw, I got to ask you about Austin Eckler. He's gotten permission to request a trade. He's been a very productive player when he's been in the lineup. Is this just the Chargers don't want to pay a running back on the big extension and or letting him see what might be out there?
This has not gone down real well on the West Coast. I tell you, in Southern California, it's not gone down well at all. This team is so close, we think, to be real good because of the quarterback, obviously, and Justin Herbert. They're in salary cap hell. They're in big trouble. And I'll kind of link this for your fans in Winnipeg. This is like Edmonton, and this is like the Maple Leafs, where you have all the young players and they grow together and all their contracts come available at the same time. Yeah. And how are you going to spend that money to lock them all in? So you spend it and you re-sign them, and then 3 years later, you got more cap problems, and you go back to the young players and say, restructure down, give me some breathing space. So they do that. But what happens is what you did in 2023 to find cap space for the Chargers is going to kill you in 2024. Both their wide receivers next year, because they're restructured, are going to have cap hits of $30 million. Joey Bosa is going to have a cap hit of $32 million, and Khalil Mack a cap hit of $36 million. This year will be the last year we'll see this Charger team the way it's structured, because next year they're going to have to dump players everywhere. They got 4 guys, those 4 that I just mentioned, Hustler, worth $155 million against the cap in 2024. They're a mess. And Eckler, he wants a payday. He has been unbelievably productive, over 7,700 all-purpose yards, 80 touchdowns, and he's the 15th highest paid back in the league. And he plays hard. He doesn't get hurt. I think they're jerking the kid around. And if they trade him, I don't care if you get a number 1 pick, or a number 2 pick. You're taking a huge chunk away from Justin Herbert's offense, and I think instead of being real close to being real good in the AFC, you're setting yourself way back. And we also know the reality. Next year, you're going to have to get rid of those wide receivers because you can't afford to have $30 million wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. They're in cap hell, and it's just a mess. But I think trying to equate what's happened in the NHL, that's what happens when all your good kids get good and their contracts come up simultaneously, if that makes sense to you.
Lee, great stuff as always. Enjoy the weekend. March Madness, lots going on, and we'll catch up in the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the draft and the dust settles, and maybe we'll officially can call Aaron Rodgers a New York Jet. Thanks for doing this.
Hustler, good to talk to you, and check my website, leehacksawhamilton.com, and access my brand new podcast, which, like your show, is blowing up.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, folks. Make sure to give Hacksaw a sub when you find him over there on YouTube. Thanks for doing this, pal. Have a great one.
Thanks, Andrew. Have a great sports weekend.
All right. There is our man, the legend himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, with us. Folks, if you have just maybe been listening, but you're with us on YouTube, Marbles registration is open right now. We'll get to that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Hey, while we're at it, maybe if you folks missed this a little earlier this week, I'm going to throw this into the chat right now. This is the link for sports trivia at Little Brown Jug. We did our first event towards the end of last summer. It was a huge hit. It was so great to see everyone come out. We're going to do it again. All new questions hosted by yours truly, but seating is limited. Remo's pinned it up at the top of the YouTube chat. So make sure to click on that. Get on over to the link. Reserve your tickets for sports trivia on the 29th. Grab some friends, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Speaking of Little Brown Jug, they've got a great new product, the generic lager. It's your basic lager, just better, impressively standard in the best way. Light and clean to taste with a mellow flavor and crisp finish. Now Manitoba can support local without having to move away from the domestic taste they've come to expect with a light beer. Single 473s are $2.99 or $19.99 for an 8-pack. Very competitive pricing for a local beer and even some of the big national staples. Generic lager available now. We'll be able to try it on the 29th. In the meantime, pop by Little Brown Jug just in time for the weekend. St. Patrick's Day. Get your favorites tonight. I'm sure it'll actually be quite fun down there this afternoon. And of course, you can also order online at littlebrownjug.ca or pick it up at your favorite vendor. And of course, a huge thanks to Nick and Nikki DQ for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk since day one. We're waiting for this damn snow to leave, and then it'll be more of the good kind of blizzard season. But it's always a great time for a blizzard at one of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs, DQ Northgate, DQ Niverville, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And if you do need a DQ ice cream cake or blizzard cake, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. They'll get it made to order, ready for a quick and easy pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. All right, great stuff from Hacksaw. Lots of Jets talk today with Scott and Ken, and 2 massive games on the weekend. But Remo, before we get to the weekend, we got to get a little marble race here on a Friday afternoon, St. Patrick's Day style.
There we go. Yeah, great seeing so many people in here today. Hey, we're heading into the biggest weekend of the year for the Jets. So if you are here, hey, help us out. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe. Over 350 today. I do have to add for the podcast listeners, winnipegsportstalk.com/links. And you can get on the link for the ticket. And if you're watching later and you don't see the chat, it's in the description of the video. All of our relevant links are in there. I got to make sure I add that in. But yeah, this is a great Friday, St. Patrick's Day. I got to get some of that generic lager this weekend. I'm pumped for it. Not going to make it green, though. I'll just drink it normally.
I can't wait to try it. Well, hopefully the beers will be celebratory after a couple big wins as opposed to beers of frustration. By the way, shout out to Elliot down at the Barons hockey tournament in Grand Forks with the fellas. good luck in the tourney. And but hey, no matter where you are, it's always time. You make time to get in on the marble race. Got some friends down in California tuning in today for this. And if you're watching right now from outside of Winnipeg, Manitoba, let us know where you're at in the chat. It's always fun to see where everyone is. All right, just last call for marbles. We'll close this up in just a minute. Remo, do you want to play the clip from yesterday's broadcast?
Yeah,
how about this?
This was pretty cool, Hustler, and we do have to mention this. The Jets showing Runway during intermission on TSN, and if you haven't seen Runway, it's on their YouTube channel and website and app and all that. But basically, behind the scenes look at the season. And yesterday's episode was on the trade deadline, and they include clips for a little narration, a little color. They had some Paul Edmonds, and they have used Winnipeg Sports Talk clips before, but just audio. And yesterday was the first time this season I've been watching a game, and I've seen your face in intermission of a Jets broadcast. It was absolutely incredible. I never thought Winnipeg Sports Talk would ever be shown on TSN in my life, considering how we ended up here.
The irony.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if the Jets just sent it in and the people at TSN didn't really understand what was happening, which I'm sure they had no idea. The higher ups there, but
hey,
I
they
thought
don't care. We've spread our wings since the old radio days. No big deal. They're not going to care.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that they would, but I wonder if someone's like, we really screwed up letting these guys go. Anyways, I'll shut up here. But shout out to Sarah, who I know goes through the time codes I put in the description to see what we're talking about, and she's grabbed clips for them to use, and they credit us, and we use their clips as well. Bringing you the coach bonus and all that stuff here. So that was so cool to see during a game broadcast. And I do have the clip, so I can shut up and we can just admire, because I don't think you've seen it because you were at the game.
No, I was at the game. My phone just blew up at the intermission, and I was like, what's everyone talking about? And then got a couple photos that were picked. But let's see what this was from the latest Runway, which was the intermission feature yesterday for the Bruins game.
Our goal is to stay in that playoff position.
Less than 3 hours till the final gun, when we see what, if anything, the Winnipeg Jets do to help their chances this year, and potential player moves that could affect the team going into the offseason and to next year. Look at that. Wow, we've made it, Reem.
Wow.
WST on anyways, but a big thanks to Sarah. I mean, obviously, when they asked to use some of our content for their stuff, we were more than happy to say yes. Anyways, that was just nice, and thanks to everyone that either gave me shots or sent a text about it. It was plenty of fodder for that. Bullish Bradley, there is a marble race, and it's coming up in just a minute. Remo, you want to? Do you want to close it up and
Sure.
We'll get going? Who else is here? Yeah, the Runway series has been awesome. I mean, really, really great. A great addition to all of the content that they put in. I can't say enough. I mean, obviously, the addition of what Sarah's doing has been great. The entire social media team at the Jets have really stepped up. They have not slumped in the second half of the season like maybe the team on the ice has.
Yeah, I'll say that my favorite part of yesterday's episode was when Scott Brown picking up Nino at 9:30 from the airport, but also Chris Krivyazik calling Nemesnikov and arranging a car. He's like, "You need a car?" And he's like, "I just call an Uber." He's like, "No, I'll get you one." I don't know. I was very curious. What kind of car was it? A limo? Was it a town car? What did they get for Vlad Nemesnikov? And I think Nemesnikov was so thrown off by the trade. When he gives him the initial salutation on the call, I don't think it was received just because there's so much going on when you get traded. I'm sure, especially when you go from, there was a shot of him at the end of the game, just sitting on the bench, just again we didn't score in. I saw people on Twitter commenting, he was in Tampa only a couple weeks ago, where it's sunny. They've got a real cup contender, and now we're here where you're, had 80-90% playoff odds at one point, and now it's down to 57.
You know what? Hey, I got no issues with Nemesnikov, and I think he probably is taking advantage of.
Yes.
I mean, this is a guy going into being a free agent the opportunity to play up in the lineup, to play significant minutes in a far more important role than he was playing in Tampa, probably something that he has welcomed. Certainly he's looked good on the ice. Both of the additions coming out of the trade deadline have been huge, huge pluses. Now it's time to get the rest of the fellas all in line with Nino and Nemetsnikov, and bottom line, get some wins starting tomorrow in Nashville with a 1 o'clock game. All right, Remo, let's do this. Let's get a little Tristan Rivers to warm things up on a St. Patrick's Day afternoon, and then we'll do the race.
Well, do we do Coolbet lines? I think we did the Coolbet.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll get.
You want
right
to do that? While I end the names, and then
perfect.
Don't you want to talk about March Madness? You didn't have Princeton in your bracket?
Listen, the March Madness right now is my exclusives because we did it again last night. Avalanche to win, the Seattle Kraken to win, and what was the other game? Oh, and the Arizona Coyotes to win. All came in plus 615. Making some people some money this week in the Coolbet exclusives. And right now, the one from yesterday or Wednesday, the Make the Cut parlay, very much alive as we get down to the end of round 2 over at the Valspar. As far as tonight goes, though, in the National Hockey League, 4 games. Sabres and Flyers in Philly. Buffalo's a minus 147 road favorite. Hurricanes and Maple Leafs, should be a good game. Leafs minus 121 faves. Blues and Capitals, the first of Jordan Binnington's 2-game suspension. He'll also miss Sunday against the Jets. Caps minus 176 favorites. And a little Bedard Bowl, if you will. The Blue Jackets and Ducks going at it in Anaheim. Anaheim, a slight minus 113 favorite. Still no lines yet for tomorrow's games, although I wouldn't be surprised if that Jets-Preds game gets hung up relatively soon. And a full slate of action in March Madness. You can find out the odds for all of the games. Make a little parlay if you want. And World Women's Curling Championship gets underway. I did throw a little sprinkle on our women from Manitoba, Carrie Anerson and the Canadian champs. They are the favorites at plus 180. Switzerland at plus 250. Sweden plus 500. Canada does play Sweden tomorrow in their opening game, 1 o'clock Winnipeg time. Carrying the girls minus 182 favorites. Sweden plus 140. And Canada minus 1.5 on the Rock line at minus 106. It's all there for you at Coolbet. If you haven't used the promo code, if you haven't played there before, when you're making your first deposit, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus. Up to $200, and make sure to check out the Coolbet exclusives because I have been, as I said, on fire this week. 2-0 with the hockey parlays, 1 plus 530. Yesterday's was plus 615, and hopefully, if things go well with Adam Hadwin this afternoon, a plus 400 make the cut parlay for the Valspar. We'll have more stuff coming up this week, and a regular programming of the Lock Shop will return next Monday when Dusty's back from his week with the kids at the Magic Kingdom. All right, let's do this, Remo. How about a little Tristan Rivers music to set us up for the St. Paddy's Day marble race?
It's Friday!
All right, the original version. It's been a while since we've seen it. Yeah, Candace Jane, there it is, the OG marble race throwback. Down right. What up, Candace? Say what's up to Tristan for us as well. Had to get the classic on every now and then, but it is great to have so many different versions. Those amazing songs that Tristan gave us for Christmas and all of you. All right, Reem, how many marbles we got in here today? And should we add one in for Jericho and Kenny Omega?
Okay, we have 198 marbles in.
Beautiful.
From the chat. Someone said add Chad Posthumus, the Sea Bears first sighting, who was here.
Yep. Sea Bears signed a second player today, but
did they? I missed that.
Chad will always be number one, and the first ever Sea Bears guest on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And I think we give Jericho and Kenny Omega marbles after their incredible performance in the homecoming show of AEW on Wednesday.
Sure. Anyone else? Do we need to hand one out to?
Oh, Bud Grant. Great call, waiters. And you know what? We should do one for Don Callis, too. By the way, you wouldn't have seen this because you weren't there last night at the game. But the guys behind the scenes at the Jets recorded a whole bunch of like hype things with the wrestlers.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. At one point, it was Kenny Omega and Don Callis during a break doing and Kenny's just think about this. He's just doing it on a green screen to no one. And it was just a masterful. You can tell these guys have been working crowds their entire life. And then some really neat ones with Jericho as well. And they did that in addition to the St. Patrick's Day themes. And a lot of people loved that. A lot of people at the game last night were making their second visit in 2 nights to Canada Life Center after the big show on Wednesday for AEW.
That's so cool. Yeah, I remember they had the Jericho ones. I love hype videos because I watched the LA Kings games and they had like Cartman doing his Go Kings Go they've used for a long time. So nice that we can get our own. Speaking of, I was watching the Kings game on Bally Sports West yesterday. And when they were on the power play, they started turning on the puck trail on the puck. And I loved it. It reminded me of the glow puck, which I thought was amazing technology and looks really cool. But I went on Twitter only to find I was in the minority, and I'm going to retweet the video. Everyone tweeting at Jim Fox.
I'm with you. I think it's cool. I've seen them use that on a couple of occasions with some different games.
It was
this
cool.
Year, and I'm here for it.
I'm gonna retweet because everyone's tweeting at Jim Fox. Like, what the hell is? Like, everyone thinks that they're too good of a hockey fan. We don't need. We're smart hockey fans. We don't need a puck trail. I can see the puck, and like people would say, it's too distracting. Distracting from what? The puck that you're trying to follow while watching the game? Really didn't make any sense to me. Hustler.
Hockey fans are some of the worst gatekeepers in all of professional sports, and it's not good for the game, to be perfectly honest with you.
I loved it.
I'm with you. Would love to see maybe a few additions like that to some of the Jet broadcasts. All right, where are we going today?
Yeah, and it needs to go like red and like pink when it goes really high speed. Like it's not just enough to have a regular puck trail. All right, I'll turn on the marble race.
Yeah,
people want me to get into like a rant at the end of the show. I have to like come prepared.
Well, that was a good one.
That was mine. I'm gonna. I'll tweet
Cass
the
is
video.
not down. Cass is not down. Puck trail is trash.
But what's the reasoning? I think it looks
Chris
cool.
Vermette, this will piss you off, Remo. The glow puck would mess with the board ads. It would be chaos.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I hate board ads, which have gotten less annoying a little, but. The puck trail, I love. I don't know if that's an oxymoron or contradictory, but I don't care.
Is there any like St. Patrick's Day or Irish tracks? What do we have here?
Yeah, I was looking for like pot of gold or rainbow something, green thing that makes your mouth green, but no, I don't see that.
Well, the House of Pain. House of Pain was a.
Is there a House of Pain? What's that? Is that?
I think I just saw one called the House of Pain.
Why is that a St. Patrick's Day thing?
Remember Jump Around? They were like a bunch of Irish dudes from Boston. They had Irish imagery and all of that.
They were
stuff.
Irish?
Yeah.
Oh, I know Jump Around. And then, hold on. Will Sutton says, how can you like the glow puck but not the board ads? The glow puck was amazing technology in 1996. I thought it was so cool.
It was ahead of its time.
Board ads are late. They're lame. That's what I think.
Don't get Remo going on the board ads, people. The marble race will happen at 4:00 if that is the case.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I gotta save our list of names here.
Yep.
Don't we
save
want the new names in? I never saved them.
Oh, the new ones, yeah. Kenny Omega, Don Callis, Chris Jericho, R.I.P. Bud Grant.
Yeah, I put them all. People are saying they don't
Buddy.
agree with me. I was like, I don't care. I know I'm in them. I know I'm in the minority when it comes to puck trail. Huss.
Us with the huge reach. Oh, what are we talking about? The House of Pain? Well, I mean, listen, I mean, go back. I mean, everything about their songs on that album was about them being like drinking Irish dudes from Boston. So not quite the Dropkick Murphys, but you know what I'm saying.
Look, there wasn't a blatant Irish reference of one of the Marble tracks. Had to make do with what we had.
Yeah, let's check this one out, though. I don't think we've done this one before. But let's make sure that it's a proper track for our wonderful Marbles competitors. By the way, shout out to our friends at Shipham and Associates. We've got, what is this? This looks like it's in the middle of a field.
Yeah, I want to like look around.
Can you? But anyways, our friends at Shipham and Associates, the hoodies are ordered. They are being made. We'll probably have them in the next week or two. So if you've been a winner in the last couple of weeks, waiting on your size, give us another couple, and we'll probably set up a big pickup for everyone. All right, were you able to check it out, or?
I can't see what it is, but want to try to start it quick and then take a look around? I can't like look. It does not letting me.
Well,
is this the one that's like just straight?
Well, I don't think we've ever done this one before.
Okay.
Tell you what, let's just go. If it looks like it's terrible, we'll make an executive decision early to stop and change the race. But otherwise, good luck to everyone. St. Patrick's Day Marbles on WST in the House of Pain.
Looks kind of cool.
All right, let's see what happens. The House of Pain.
I'm here for this one.
Yep.
We got the Plinko start.
Long one. What do we got coming in here? These actually, I do like these ones. Oh, Dustin with a big race, like didn't get touched at all.
Yeah,
what else
a lot
do we
of
have
obstacles
here.
here.
Top? Yeah. I see Dan Jets fan in there. Oh, Mitch WHT just got thrown over the top rope. See Leslie Misnook's in it. Dustin Vosper still looking pretty good. Ben Gay or Ben Gann?
Ben Gann, yeah.
Ben Gann. Ooh, Ben Gann. Oh, Ben just went right through. That was perfect execution. Okay, this is where it's going to get tough. Who can make it through this obstacle? Ben did it again. Ben is looking good, but it's getting pretty tight. Oh, who is that? Todd?
Todd 18.
Todd 18. Todd 18 looks like he's going to get it done. Although, who's coming up? Todd 18 gets it done and is the winner. Another Todd M in the top three. Quite the, not a bad race, not particularly long, but certainly there was enough of obstacles where everything was interesting at the end. But yes, Todd 18, Atomic, Kevin and Jay right in there in the mix. And Instant Noodles, 1, 2, 3, coming up just short. A great finish and a great performance by everyone. Todd 18, your winner. Instant Noodles, 1, 2, 3, second. Todd M was 3. Dan Jets fan, 4. Atomic, 5. Manny Fran with a nice performance. In 6th, 7th was Daryl Morosky. 8 was Theo Seegers. 9 was Dustin Vosper, who had a great start in Superior CD, number 10 on the list. We'll wait to get everyone in here, and then, we are getting some fire at the end. Brass Bonanza might get burnt. Ryan, DJ 22. Will somebody get burnt, or will they all get... Oh, it looks like the guys are going to get in. Brass Bonanza, and then DJ 22. Right on. All right, do a quick rundown for those that may have side wagers with friends as to who
I think
who
we can
won it.
agree that was a great. I thought the race was good, but everyone's saying too short in chat. But I thought it was entertaining, and there was definitely suspense on who was going to win.
Yeah, no, pretty good track. Would be nice to have a little bit longer one. We'll keep that. Under advisement. Hugh just won. Finished 11th this week. Pretty good. BA split with the top 20 finish. Tyson Ducharme. There was a guy that had a good time at wrestling. Bud Grant up there. Nicely done. Who do we got here? Christopher Met. Cowboy. Shout out to Cowboy. Saw him rocking the WST bomber version of the hat a little earlier this week out in the town after the game. There's Dan Wilburn. There's Hack. What's up, Hasbeek? 58th. Not too bad. Let's see here. We got Brown Eyed Girl. Chris Jericho in its 7th. Nicely done. Gitch
79.
Lishka. We saw Gitch last night at the game. Good to catch up with him. Mike Wynn, who was part of the representing Section 316 last night in one of the intermission promos. The St. Patrick's Day, what do they call it? The marathon or something like that. Cool thing where they had like a race, stick handling race on the ice with you had to follow the rainbow path on the ice. It was very well done. There's Don Callis. He got in there as well. Dea at the end. How many people else got bounced? SK and Bardo. Dom Zappia. What's up, Dom? Dallas Pauls. Very loyal. One of our
Ross,
favorites.
172.
There's Ross. Low down there for Roscoe. Tony Pop. Free Oleg. Nicely done, Oleg. Kabilis. 189. And then who got bounced? Mitch, Poopy Pants, Gary Labossiere, Adam, Pretty and Peon, Coachy 51, and Chad Posthumous.
Man, you should have seen Chad. It was after it finished. His marble went flying. It was pretty funny. If you go watch the replay right after it finishes. You can. I think.
That must have been. He may have gotten burnt and got thrown up by the fire. Anyways, good marble race today. Todd, our winner, Todd 18. Send us an email, winnipegsportstalk.com, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. Let us know what size you are. And if we've got your size currently in stock, we'll hook you up. If not, it'll be a couple-week wait before our friends at Shipham and Associates get us hooked up with the new versions of our Masters Green Jacket. But you get it for not winning a golf tournament, for winning a marble race at the end of the day. All right, before we go, Remo, what do you think? Can they grind 4 points out of this weekend or what?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We need this. We need this win here. We need to have a good show Monday.
Yeah.
And what better way to have a good show Monday with back-to-back wins? I think Hellebuck starts both. They win both.
too.
And Rittich starts Tuesday. I'll be honest, I agreed with a lot Ken said. I kept writing in chat. I'm like, wow, Ken's really dead on today. So I'm going with double back-to-back wins. Always play the Blues tight. Going to Nashville. For sure. We're going to start feeling good. The playoff percentage is going to go up, way up. Feeling good today.
It certainly will if they can win tomorrow and then do it again on Sunday night against St. Louis. First things first, tomorrow, 1 o'clock p.m., Jets and Preds. Enjoy it wherever you are going to be taking it in. And just make sure you don't have too much fun tonight so you're good to go for that early puck drop tomorrow afternoon. For those of you that are on Sirius XM, I'm going to be jumping on tomorrow morning, 11:30 Winnipeg time with Dennis Bernstein and the fourth period guys. So if you're out and about or you're listening to Sirius, check that out. We'll be talking lots of Jets before this big weekend. And then we're back at it on Monday, wrapping the games on the weekend, looking to the Jets being home for one game against the Arizona Coyotes, and then back out on the road down south, taking on the Ducks and Kings in a monster week with their playoff position on the line. Folks, thanks to our guests today, Billeck and Kenny were awesome. Always love having Hacksaw, and all of you for making us a part of your day. Make sure you hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already. do us a favor. Tell a friend on the weekend about Winnipeg Sports Talk, where they can find us. Show them how to subscribe, and hopefully we can continue growing. We're hit 8,850 or 8,850 subs, getting closer to 900. So, or 9,000, I should say. Hopefully we can do that in the next few weeks with your help. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Happy St. Paddy's Day. We'll see you Monday on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.